Well, greetings and salutations, everybody. Welcome to the best damn movie-related show on the planet Earth, the John Campea Show, coming to you from right here on my YouTube channel. I'm, of course, your host, John Campea. It is an awesome honor and privilege, as it is every day, to have you, my international friends, gathered together with us as we come around to talk about our favorite things in the world, movies and movie news, television, a lot of good stuff. And, of course, joining me to talk about all this good stuff on a Friday is Mr. Good Stuff himself, one Mr. Robert Meyer Burnett. Robert, how you doing, sir?
John, I think I'm receiving a 6-scale Brienne of Tarth action figure today.
What?
So I know what. How can that not be a good day?
When do I get to see this thing?
Well, you know, I can show it to you any morning you'd like. Evening, in case you'd like to see it there.
Well, no, that's all right. But I would love to see this. Is this a sideshow or is this another company?
No, it's a 3A. And they've been doing. I've been sporadically getting Game of Thrones figures. I didn't even know I ordered this one. I guess I did.
Of course you did. Of course you randomly ordered a Game of Thrones figure. Well, listen, guys, we do have a lot of stuff we're going to talk about here today. We're going to talk about this whole stuff about, is there a JJ cut? Oh, good. We get to have another somebody's cut thing. We're going to talk a little bit about, could we possibly see Spider-Man and Tom Holland pop up in Venom 2. We're going to talk about the unprecedented year. We're going to put some things into context. We all knew Disney had a huge year, but the numbers are in now, and they are absolutely historic. We're going to talk about that a little bit. Is anybody going to go see The Grudge this weekend? All that and a few things more. But before we get into all those a few things more, there is something that it's unavoidable. I didn't want to talk about this. But the amount of, I figured it's going to become a bigger issue if I don't at least say something. Then, like if I don't say something, it's going to become a bigger issue than if I do say something. So let me talk about this right off the top. I know a lot of people have been asking me about this, so let me refer to this. Obviously, yesterday, news came out that Collider had canceled one of the longest running movie discussion shows on YouTube. They canceled Movie Talk, Heroes, Jedi Council, Collider Live, a number of other shows like that. And they canceled those shows, ending essentially an era in these types of shows. So now I constantly talk about how the purpose of my YouTube channel is not to talk about other YouTube channels. I think that's bottom of the barrel feeding. I don't, that's not what I want my channel to be about. I'm not here to talk about other YouTube channels and what they do and don't do and all that kind of stuff. However, I do recognize that this is a little bit of a unique situation, being that this was a thing that I had created and was a part of for a long time. And it being gone. So I recognize that, and I understand why people want to hear my thoughts or my reaction on that. I get it. I do. So I will address it here quickly. However, let me disappoint a lot of you right off the top. The comments I'm about to give about, the direction that Collider has decided to go. If I know a lot of people, Rob, they love their drama. They what do they call it? The T? Is that what they call it? I don't know. I'm not up on all the big verbiage.
It's a favorite saying of mine. The T is the information, the inside dope.
Yeah, if people are here to hear me dish on some say nasty things about people and give personal observations about people and talk about that this person, I'm sorry, you're in for a real disappointment because that's not what I'm here to do. I will give a couple observations on what I think are trends, what I think were some professional philosophies and things like that. But if you were here to hear somebody, let's get into drama about somebody talking crap about somebody, I'm not going to do that. Sorry to disappoint you. But I will say this. I think Collider making the decision, and everybody's going to get mad at me for saying this, but hear me out. Collider making the decision to cancel all those shows was the right decision. I'm not happy about it, and I'll get into that in a second. The reality was that Collider is a fairly large operation, at least compared to me in my spare bedroom at my place in Burbank. Compared to me in my spare bedroom, Collider is a fairly large operation. With large operations and large facilities and all that kind of stuff comes large expenses. With large expenses comes the requirement for large return on investment. That's just business, folks. And the reality is, over the past 2.5 years, I mean, their shows have gone from numbers of like 100,000 plus views a day when I was there to 10,000 views a day, to 8,000 views a day, to 15,000 views a day. I mean, that's just what happened. And that becomes non-sustainable from a professional point of view. I've been seeing some people online saying, Collider disrespected the fans by canceling the shows. They've spit in the fans' faces, blah, blah, blah. And I'm sorry, but no, they just made a decision that made sense and was right for them to make that decision. It was, unfortunately, a decision that I think they were justified in making. And again, I'm just speaking from a professional point of view. When you look at the facts and the numbers, you understood, yeah, you can't sustain operations that big with those types of numbers. And so they've decided to move, put all their energy and resources into a new direction. And quite frankly, it was probably the right thing for them to do. I've also had some people writing to me, Rob, saying, "Oh, Campea, you must be happy about this, blah, blah." No, I'm not. That stuff was something I poured over 5 years of my life into building and developing. I poured blood, sweat, and tears. I often, for months stretches at a time, put my marriage on hold while I was trying to put in the work to get that thing to where I thought it could be, with a lot of other dedicated people who also were putting in a lot of blood, sweat, and tears into all that kind of stuff. And to see this thing that, and I'm sure some of you can relate for something you've poured in blood, sweat, and tears, only later to see, maybe even after you've moved on, that the plug has been pulled on it and it leaves an empty place in your soul. There's an empty place in my soul this morning about that being gone. That thing that I spent so many years of my life building and developing and pouring a lot of myself into, it being gone. So if you think for 1 second that I'm even remotely happy about this, you are drastically incorrect, and you clearly don't know me at all. So just let me say that. Now, I will say this. This is the one bit of professional and strategic thinking that I will comment on about this whole thing. I never really gave a lot of details as surrounding as to the deeper whys of why I left Collider. And there are a number of reasons. There's no one reason why I decided to leave Collider. There's no one, magic bullet reason that became the de facto thing. This is why I left. There were a number of circumstances. There were a number of things in play, and that just ultimately left me not feeling very happy. And, then when my friend passed away, who had said to me just a few months earlier before he died, life is too short to be unhappy, I made the decision to move on. But I can tell you that direction was definitely one of the things that made me want to move on. The day that I left Collider, I spoke with Christian Harloff, who will be on the show a little bit later today, talking about something else. Just so you know, he will be on the show a little bit later today, later in the show here, but to talk about something else entirely. But the day that I left, I had a long phone conversation with Christian Harloff. And again, this is just one of several reasons, okay? Just one of several. But it was, I had a belief, whether I was right or wrong, that Collider, under the new ownership and leadership, wanted to go into a direction I did not want things to go in. And I will bring up, this is the blog post that I put up, Rob, just after I left. Let me just read one of the paragraphs here. This is back, I think this is the day or two or a few days after I had left Collider. And I had written the following. I said, however, the direction and operation, the direction the operation was heading in, as well as some key decisions that were being made, I've disagreed with strongly and have made me very uncomfortable. Not to say that I'm right to disagree, nor that they were wrong. And that's important. It's not that I was right and they were wrong. They could have been 100% right and I could have been 100% wrong, but it's just that it's not what I was comfortable with. That's all. Not to say that I'm right to disagree or that they were wrong, not at all. Right or wrong doesn't come into it. But as I told my former boss, if I stayed, I was just going to continue being frustrated and unhappy and maybe become an obstruction to what he wanted to do with Collider. Neither of those are good scenarios for anyone. I wanted to be happy and I want my boss to succeed because he and all the folks at Collider are awesome. What I was referring to there, Rob, was, and this goes to the discussion I was having with Christian Harloff. The day that I left, I talked to Christian Harloff and I said, I just really feel that the current leadership here is zeroed in on or obsessed with trends and with celebrity content. Trends and celebrity content. And I said, that is not what we've built. That to me, that is not a direction I want to go in. It's not a direction that I think is the right direction. I think we've built something unique. We spent 5+ years of constant growth. You know, we never didn't grow. Month after month, we grew all the time. The only time that Collider took a slight dip in our growth was when I had stepped away from Collider the first time I was still working with Complex, but to work on Film HQ. So when I had stepped away for that one season of Film HQ, the numbers dipped a bit, fine, but once I came back and we got our philosophies all straightened out again, it was back to growth. And we were growing and we grew back up to over 100,000 views a day and all that kind of stuff. And that was the direction that I wanted us to go. And again, I could have been wrong. I might be wrong in that philosophy, but that's just where I was at personally. And I decided that I'm not going to be happy here going in the direction of after trends and celebrity. Clearly, the current leadership didn't put a lot of value in the discussion content side, which is what I wanted to develop. And I thought, why stay if I'm just going to be unhappy and if I'm just going to be thwarting the efforts of the leadership here to try to go where they want to go? Because they had every right to go in that direction. So just a professional philosophy, difference of opinion. That's all. No dirt here. It's just difference of opinion. And I knew that that was a direction I didn't want to go. And I did find it affirming, I guess, when I read the statement that Collider put out saying, we're going to do more deepfake stuff, which is the total trend. That's the trendy thing right now. We're going to do deepfake and celebrity-based stuff. And I said, well, and then, you know, I spoke with Christian Harloff and I said, do you remember that conversation we had 2.5 years ago? And he said, yeah. And I want to point something out here too. Let me point something out. This could absolutely be the absolute right decision for them as a company. It could absolutely be 100% the right direction for them to go. You know, when the numbers on their shows started to fall, I had a dinner with the leadership there. This was shortly. We were meeting about something else, but this is a few months after I had left. We had gotten together for a quick dinner. And I said, look, I do notice the numbers are falling. Here's what you need to do. And when I left, the day that I left, I talked to my former boss and said, here's what I think you need to do. They completely discarded what I suggested. That's fine. That was their right. Then when I had dinner with them a few months later, I also said, look, I really think you need to do this, and this to stop the decline. Again, took my advice and discarded it, which is completely their right to do. I've discarded advice. You've discarded advice. We've all done it. But they wanted to go the direction they wanted to go, which is perfectly fine and fair. And I can't help but feel that had a lot to do with the continued decline in the viewership because that place was stacked with talent. Not just when I was there, but even long after I was there. That under that roof over at Collider was stacked with talented people. And so at the end of the day, I think Collider made a decision that they needed to make. Now, do I think maybe they should have given every one of the individual shows a one last show for the audience to say goodbye to everybody? Yeah, maybe. But there also might be some good arguments to make that they didn't. Do I think maybe they should have told people they were letting them go more than just a couple of hours before they released their press release? Yeah, I do. But I mean, there might also be some good arguments as to why maybe that was the best way to handle it. So I don't think people should just be jumping on a hate bandwagon here. I think they were in a unique position. They made some decisions, and they're making decisions based on what they feel is best for their company. And that's all any organization, that's all any individual, and that's all any company can do, is to do the best you can, making the best decisions that you feel are the right decisions for your company in your current circumstance. And that's what they did. And listen, we may look back, everybody may look back on this a year from now, and Collider may be like the bigger than BuzzFeed. They might be the hugest thing in the world a year from now. We don't know. So I know it was very unpopular with a lot of people. I know it rubbed a lot of people the wrong way. But honestly, it is what they needed to do. And so that is the full extent of anything I'm going to say on the situation. If people are looking for me to talk crap and stuff like that, I'm just not going to do that because, you know, they just did what they needed to do. So Rob, I mean, I've kind of hogged all the time here, but if you had anything that you wanted to throw in on that.
Well, you know, I just think that one of the things that can't be denied is the rise of many other channels that service. There's a lot of competition out there, including my channel, your channel, obviously. And I think that you have to constantly, in this space, time is accelerated. Evolution is accelerated. Shows can look very different in 6 months than they did 6 months ago. And obviously, I started my entire YouTube career at Collider because of John Schnepp and meeting you. I've continued to do that. This will be, I started in April of 2015. April of 2020 will mark 5 years for me being on YouTube, which is unbelievable to me. And all I can say is that I met a lot of great people at Collider. And like you said, there's a lot of top tier talent there. There's a lot of really wonderful, enthusiastic people that I am quite fond of, both as individuals and as personalities. And it's my hope that all of these people are scooped up, you know, by other channels. And I think that if nothing else, Collider was a breeding ground for top tier talent that we're going to be seeing a lot of in the coming years, if not decades to come. And I wish everybody well, and I have very fond memories of Collider. And I think what they were able to do was amazing. What you started there, John, really grew and flourished. And I have nothing but fond memories of my time at Collider. And because of that, I'm still involved with Christian Harloff and the Schmodown. I'm still here on the John Campea Show. So I wish Collider the best, and I hope that everybody that we've had the pleasure of working with goes forth and multiplies.
I agree. And I look forward, personally, I look forward to seeing where everybody who's no longer there, where they end up and the great things. And I think that's a great way to look at it, Rob, that for a lot of years, starting at AMC and then moving over to Collider, it introduced a lot of people to the internet world. John Schnepp was one of them. In our time there, all that kind of stuff. So it's going to be interesting to see and exciting to see where a lot of these people end up going. I will let everybody know, though, like I said this before when I first started the John Campea YouTube channel, I'm not here on YouTube to create AMC Movie Talk or Collider Video 2.0. That's not what I'm here to do. So I'm not about to have an influx of people that I'm going to run out and get and bring in here. Not at all. But there's going to be a lot of places, believe me. If this was the NFL, Rob, there's going to be a lot of teams looking to sign these free agency players now.
Right.
There's going to be a lot of people out there looking to sign some of these some of the talent at Collider that's going to move on now. And all we can do now at this point is hope the best for everybody. Hope the best for Collider going in the new direction that they're going in. Hope the best for all the people who are involved in the direction they're going in. And I think we're going to see a lot of great things from those individuals in the future. Okay, guys, with that down and out of the way, and that being said, let's move on to our main topic. What? We're here to talk about movie stuff? Yes, we are. We're here to talk about some movie stuff. So let's talk about our main topics today. How do we select our main topics here on the John Campea Show? Well, you see, it's really rather simple. You guys come up with our main topics by simply going over anytime, 24/7, over to www.thejohncampeashow.com/contact. Once you guys get there, you're going to see a form. Fill out that form with your topic or question, hit submit, and then maybe, just maybe, you might see your topic or question featured here on The John Campea Show. With that down, let's move on to our first main topic today. And our first main topic today gets submitted to us by Andrew Huffman, who writes in, "Hey, John, I was just wondering if you've seen the trailer for the new Grudge movie coming out. I know it's a bit old, but I'm curious. Is this a spoof or is this serious? I can't tell. It looks awful. Bring on the filthy as always." All right, thanks a lot for sending that in, man. And you would be forgiven if you didn't realize that a movie opened last night, another remake of the great Asian horror film Ju-On called The Grudge. I believe it was Sarah Michelle Gellar, Rob, did a Grudge version before.
Yeah.
And now they got a new version out, and nobody knew it was opening. Nobody knew it was opening. I didn't see one trailer for this thing other than online a few months ago. And again, you would be forgiven as an individual if you had no clue that this, despite the fact that John Cho was in it, and I really like John Cho. So despite the fact that he was in it, there was just absolutely no word. And then to compound the problem, the movie opened last night. And up to 1 hour, I believe, Rob, before the film opened, there were still no reviews on Rotten Tomatoes. The review embargo had not been lifted up to 1 hour before when the film started playing publicly. Well, we might be able to know why now. When you go over to Rotten Tomatoes now, as you guys can see here, there are reviews now up because the film is public. It has a 17% critic rating. And the audience, the verified audience score, remember, these are people that are verified. They did go to see the movie. A 20% verified audience score. For first of all, I want to know how those 231 verified audience members even knew this movie was opening, because a lot of people didn't know. So, Rob, I have not seen the film, all right, because they kept it a big secret. They kept reviews, because you would think if you're not going to have a big ad campaign, you would think you're really going to focus on getting the media to talk about it then. If you can't have a big ad campaign, and they still kept that under wraps. Now we know why. So my question here is, Rob, understanding that there's been no buzz, and maybe you have heard some buzz. I'm going to ask you that in a second, Rob. But consider from my point of view that there has been absolutely no buzz on this movie whatsoever. Like, I've heard nobody talking about it. Considering that they hid the reviews as long as they possibly could, and now considering that we have reviews, and those reviews are, to say the least, unkind at this point. The question we raise here now is, and I don't mean to be negative or gang pile, but I got to ask the question: is anybody going to go see Grudge this weekend? And I'm going to be very curious to see the numbers, Rob. I'm going to be very curious to see the numbers, but I just don't know that anybody's going to see this thing. I'm thinking, I could be way off on this. I don't know what the tracking numbers are. I'm guessing under 7 million. I'm guessing under 7 million for an opening weekend. I don't know, Rob. Number one, have you heard any buzz for this thing? And do you think anybody's going to go see this weekend?
Well, I think judging by the audience score, the audience already has a grudge against the Grudge, John. No, movies that don't work or don't do well that are theatrically released always give me great pain. I always feel bad for everybody involved because it's so hard to get a movie out theatrically these days. But I wonder, we already had an American remake of The Grudge. So now they're remaking a remake of an original Japanese film. I mean, I wonder who thought this was a good idea. We live in a world now where there's so many great horror franchises coming out, whether it's Insidious, even Insidious 4 was pretty good, directed by Adam Robitel. You've got the Conjuring franchise, which has 2 spinoffs now, Annabelle and the Nun. There's horror. John Cho's last movie, Searching, which was a really interesting, wonderful movie.
Wonderful.
I bought the Blu-ray. Really innovative stuff happening. And there's a lot of, I know personally, a lot of great horror filmmakers who are trying to develop new projects. I mean, Robitel's new, he's making Escape Room 2 right now. And I just wonder, what was the purpose and the thinking behind this kind of a movie? Because horror is doing well. A24 is crushing it with their horror releases. Antlers that's coming out, that's produced by Guillermo del Toro, looks bananas. The new Mackenzie Davis film, The Turning, which is an updating of The Turning of the Screw. There's really great horror. Horror as a genre is really healthy. So why go back to a film, a series that was relatively played out? And I don't understand. There's some great talent involved with this film. And I have to tell you, John, I thought the trailers looked pretty good.
I agree. I finally got around to sitting down and watching all the trailers that they did put out online. I thought they were creepy as hell. I like the trailers.
I did too, and it is really upsetting because to be honest, I was looking forward to this, and to hear that it's not great, it just bums me out. Whenever a horror movie comes out that's less than great, because it's one of my favorite genres, I just wonder, what was the thinking behind this? A quick buck? I don't know. Anyway,
question is, guys, for you, have you been, first of all, let me ask you guys, were you even aware that The Grudge was opening this weekend? Because I know there are a lot, maybe you were, maybe you thought, yeah, we all knew that this was opening up, or maybe you hadn't heard of it at all. And do you have plans to go and see it? Jump down to the comment section below and let me know your thoughts. All right. With that down, let's move on to our second main topic today. And our second main topic today gets sent in to us by John Nolbacher, who writes, so apparently, not surprisingly, quote unquote, reports of a director's cut of The Rise of Skywalker have been surfacing. To me, this is yet another example of a broken news system. What are your thoughts? All right. Thanks a lot for saying that in, John. And yeah, there have been a lot of people talking about this. You guys have probably been seeing running around all over the internet right now that there's a whole bunch of stuff about, did you hear about the JJ cut? There's a JJ cut and everybody's demanding the JJ cut and all this kind of stuff. It's like, oh God, where does this come from? Okay, first of all, let's be clear about where this comes from. Every story you see about a JJ cut of Star Wars The Rise of Skywalker, every single one that you see, it all comes from the same place. They all reference from the exact same place. An anonymous, unverified Reddit post posted in a Reddit channel that is dedicated to the hatred of the new Star Wars movies. Let me reemphasize that. All these reports are coming from the one same place. An anonymous post by an unverified user posted in a subreddit that is dedicated to the hatred of the new Star Wars movies. That's where this is all coming from. Now, I just want to highlight that what that means is a 12-year-old child who lives next door to you could have hopped on Reddit and wrote that himself and just threw it up there. Because you have no way of knowing. Just so you know, I might have written that post, and you would know.
Did you?
Anonymous, maybe. An anonymous, unverified user jumped onto a subreddit that is pretty much dedicated to the hatred of the new Star Wars films and wrote all this stuff about a JJ cut. There's a couple things to talk about here. Number one, bias confirmation is a big thing, Rob. Bias confirmation. Basically, people will believe something regardless of the real actual validity of it if it's something that affirms their pre-existing bias and belief. So somebody who really wants to love The Rise of Skywalker, if they see some kind of report, even if it's a report that clearly has not a lot of basis in fact or whatever, but it's a report, even if no basis in fact, that really highlights the greatness of Rise of Skywalker, they are predisposed to believing it. They'll want to believe it, and they'll try to believe it. The same as opposite. People who wanted to hate something, they'll believe whatever rumor or whatever comes at it, and that's fine. So basically what we're dealing with here, Rob, is this is all coming from the notion that what was posted in this Reddit, and I'm just giving the Coles notes, the highlights here. is that apparently there was a slightly longer cut of the movie, that there was a scene where John Boyega actually used the Force to open a door, that apparently there was an additional scene showing Kylo Ren kind of struggling a little bit with, do I want to be a good guy? Do I want to be a bad guy? Just little things like that. The first thing that pops into my mind is every fucking movie ever made has a ton of unused footage. Every movie ever made, except for the lowest of the low budget where you can't waste a single frame, but just about every single movie you have ever paid money for to go into a movie theater to watch has footage left on the cutting room floor. It had a 4-hour runtime, then a 3-hour runtime, then they got it down to a 2.5-hour runtime, then they got it down to 2. That is like 90% of all movies in Hollywood. So somebody coming out and saying, there was cut footage from the Star Wars, The Rise of Skywalker, and there was actually a longer runtime. Of course, that's every fucking movie. That's every fucking movie. Of course there was. Yes, there was. This is not a news flash. That is almost every movie you can talk about, Rob. That is the case. So somebody coming out somewhere on Reddit saying, did you know there was some deleted footage that they didn't use? Yeah? Did you know that they use lights on this movie? Yeah, I assume they use lights at some point on the movie. So, so look, and I want to point out here that this could be true. It could not be true. I'm not sitting here to make a statement of the validity of what's being claimed, that there was extra footage. I just assumed there was extra footage. That there was at one point a longer cut of the movie. I just assumed there was at one point a longer cut of a movie, just like there are for 90% of the movies out there. So this could be true. It could not be true, but that almost becomes irrelevant because it doesn't matter. Guess what? Showing a scene of Finn opening a door at the Force doesn't change The Rise of Skywalker. I already feel like The Rise of Skywalker heavily implied that Finn was discovering he was a little bit Force sensitive. I believe the movie already did a good enough job showing that to us. It was clearly implied already. Showing Finn opening a door wouldn't have made one squirt of piss a difference. Having Kylo go, oh, do I like Rey in some scene? It wouldn't have made a difference to the movie. It might have been a nice scene, but it wouldn't have changed the fundamentals of the movie anyway. So, I don't know. Number one, it's just funny seeing everybody will rally around something that they want to believe. But number two, it's an irrelevant piece of information because it doesn't matter. Every movie has cut footage. Every movie had longer running times at one point. And these little scenes that people are talking about don't fundamentally change the movie. It still is what it is. And ultimately, we can talk about this, but listen, the movies that come out in theaters are the cut. Leave it alone. You can cry and scream and whine for the director's cut of every single movie out there. I've done it, so I'm sure you've done it too. So we can all whine and cry and scream and bitch and moan just like I have before about all this kind of stuff. It doesn't matter. The movie that came out is the movie. Let it go. Of course, there was extra footage. Of course. Anyway, Rob, you having made your own feature films and worked on several major feature films, how do you respond to all this?
Well, what you said's essentially correct. I mean, what I found interesting about this report, and again, it's always a game of telephone, but let's just say this report had some validity. What I found interesting is about the battles that J.J. Abrams might have been fighting with the studio. Disney, of course, had a lot riding on this movie. And of course, as we know, once the Star Wars saga passed out of the hands of George Lucas and into the hands of Disney, Disney is servicing a global entertainment empire with these movies, so to speak. They are a global entertainment empire. So ultimately, it's Disney's whatever they need to happen with these Star Wars movies is going to trump all other concerns, especially ones of artistic integrity, because Disney owns the franchise now and they need to do what they think is best. And I think that it's never great when corporations are dictating storytelling points because that runs contrary to what storytelling is. You can't make a great story based on what they believe demographics want. You can't do that. And stories have to be true to themselves. But like you pointed out, this is a film. There are many creative battles fought on in the movie editing room. There is running time issues. If this was a 3-hour movie, there's a huge economic impact to the bottom line of this film that was probably unacceptable to Disney. So look, you could release a 4-hour cut of just about any movie. But as you pointed out, John, a movie has to be edited. It has to be shaped. It has to be carefully curated, scene by scene, cut by cut, to make sure it's the best movie possible. And at the same time, when you are working for Disney and they are saying you have to bring the movie in at under, say, 2 hours and 30 minutes, it can't be an Endgame length film, you have to abide by that. That's just the reality. And so, like you pointed out, every single movie you have ever seen in your life has scenes that you've never seen. Scenes with characters you love that you will never see. But for the most part, look, The Abyss just dropped on HBO. I want the director's cut. I love the extended version of The Abyss. It's not on Blu-ray yet. Why not? I want to see those giant tidal waves. I can't, John. I can't. And that was even released, and it's not out. That's just the reality. That said, I'd watch a 3-hour cut of Rise of Skywalker. Why not release an extended version if there is one?
I've seen enough. I've seen enough of the Rise of Skywalker. I don't need to see any more of it. But that being said,
deleted scenes on Disney Plus.
And I understand a lot of people love the movie, and that's great. I celebrate that. But here's the most ridiculous thing that I heard come out of this, Rob. There's this ridiculous thing now ramping its way through saying Disney purposefully sabotaged the movie because they wanted to make JJ look bad because JJ just signed a development deal with Warner Brothers. And I'm like, you have got to be a special kind of dumb. You've got to be a special kind of dumb to believe that Disney, number one, the most big, powerful, rich studio in the world, cares about that. But number two, you got to be really, really specially dumb to believe that they're going to undermine their own finances just to do something spiteful to a creative director doing what thousands of other directors have done. Really? Yeah, Disney's going to hurt their own financial future just to do something like that out of spite? If that was anywhere remotely, if they were really butthurt about it, they just would have said, JJ, we can't have you on this film anymore. That's all they would have done. And then they would have put out a press release saying JJ Abrams and us have parted ways over creative differences. And then they would have installed a new director. So there could be things true about these reports. There could be things false about these reports. But that whole thing about Disney purposefully sabotaged the movie just to hurt J.J. Abrams is an idiocy it's a flat earth level idiocy that I don't know. Do you think is there any argument to be made there, Rob, though? Maybe I'm missing something. Is there any argument to be made there that there could be validity to that?
I don't think so. Because like you said, what was the issue at hand is a movie that they need to put out into the marketplace and make the most money with a global audience as possible. And that's what they were looking to do. And the idea that Disney would sabotage their own movie long after J.J. Abrams goes over to Warner Brothers under his new deal for $500 million, Disney will be monetizing The Rise of Skywalker and all the ships and all the characters and all the situations for decades to come. So they want that to be the best version of The Rise of Skywalker possible. And everybody who's working on these things wants them to be great. I mean, the problem is not everybody understands. At the end of the day, with things with this much money at stake, you have the company chairman and people stepping in who are not filmmakers themselves, but they're making creative decisions. And this happens all the time. And I don't think it ever turns out well.
All right. The question here is, guys, what do you think about all this? You're seeing all this unfolding again. Maybe you're kind of like, why are we even talking about this? Maybe you think this is a big, important issue. Tell me your point of view on this. Jump down into the comments section below and leave your thoughts there. All right. With that down, let's move on to our third main topic today. And our third main topic today gets submitted to us by Mason, who writes, "Hey, John and crew. I've recently read an article saying that Sony and Tom Holland are rumored to be in talks for Spider-Man to have a cameo in Venom 2. With how they changed Venom's origin in the first film, how do you see Sony introducing Spider-Man/Peter into the Venomverse if rumors end up being true?" All right, thanks a lot for sending in that question, Mason. And what Mason's basically talking about is there are a lot of rumors and reports going around saying that Tom Holland is in talks and secretly in talks to maybe appear in Venom 2. Now, one of the roots of where that would be coming from, in case some people are saying, where on earth does that come from? Well, if you go all the way back to when Sony and Marvel kind of they kissed and made up and got back together again. Kevin Feige at one point made the following comments. And Kevin Feige said this. Now, this is going back a bit, but he said, Spider-Man is a powerful icon and hero whose story crosses all ages and audiences around the globe. He also happens to be the only hero with the superpower to cross cinematic universes. So as Sony continues to develop their own Spideyverse, you never know what surprises the future might hold. Now, to a lot of people who would say, oh my God, a ridiculous rumor about Tom Holland coming in this thing, you got to understand that I believe that this statement from Kevin Feige legitimately opens a lot of doors about what could be done with Spider-Man, even right now, while Marvel is producing some Spider-Man films. Now, there are a lot of people like myself that believe that the next two Spider-Man films are going to be produced by Sony or by Marvel under the ownership of Sony are going to be the final two films. And I believe that right now. I still believe there's a possibility that they could extend their deal more later on, and we'll continue to see Sony and Marvel working together. I would personally like that very much. I think the collaboration between Sony and Marvel on these Spider-Man movies have been wonderful. I would personally love to see those continue. But I kind of believe that the tea leaves are pointing to that these next two films will be the final ones. Maybe they will, maybe they won't. We'll find out in the next couple of years. That being said, I do believe that these comments by Kevin Feige open a lot of doors, Rob, to what could be possible. But here's the big problem I have with this notion that right now, Tom Holland's in talks, Rob. Tom Holland's in talks to be in these things. Here's the reason I doubt that severely. If I'm not mistaken, and correct me if I'm wrong, they started shooting Venom in November. That means their script is done, locked, and they're shooting the movie now. They're not at a point right now in this movie where they're saying, maybe we'll throw in Spider-Man. That time was months ago. That time to have those thoughts and discussions was probably June or July. With them already shooting and well into production, that means they got their script, it's locked, they're moving forward, all that kind of stuff. So there's no point in having discussions with Tom Holland about popping up in that movie. Plus, if I'm not mistaken, they wouldn't need to have a discussion with Tom Holland. They've got Tom Holland under contract. They can probably just tell Holland to be in there. So could he appear though, Rob? Yeah, he could. But John, you just said it's too late to make that decision. But they may have made the decision to have Tom Holland pop up as Spider-Man months ago. I'm not saying they did, but I'm saying that is a possibility that's on this table. It's also very possible they didn't. The only thing that I do not believe is legitimate is the notion that right now they're trying to figure out if they're going to have Tom Holland in this movie. No. They already know if Tom Holland is or isn't going to pop up in this movie in a role, as a cameo, or not at all. My point is, I think that's already been decided a long time ago. Would have had to have been. But I'm not going to sit here, Rob, and say that it's 100% false that Tom Holland could appear in this movie one way or the other. No. I think it's possible. Given, once again, what Kevin Feige said, it does open the door to that possibility. That is possible. I only just don't think it's possible that they're just considering it at this point. I think the decision's made, and maybe it is to have him in there. Now, Rob, I would guess, and I'm only guessing, my guess is that we're not going to see Tom Holland in Venom 2. That's my guess. But I wouldn't put any money on that because I do believe it's at least possible that we could, especially even just in a cameo role. Rob, let me ask you this. Given the conversations and given the comments given by Kevin Feige and all that kind of stuff, do you think it's possible Tom Holland could pop up in this movie? And do you believe the report that maybe they're still just trying to figure it out, or do you believe it's something that would have been decided already?
Well, to quote James T. Kirk, quoting Mr. Spock, there are always possibilities, John. Always possibilities. But I think, look, everybody knows, including the top brass at Sony, that people want to see Spider-Man and Venom share frames together. This is not something that has been lost on anyone when they started making. How many conversations do you think they had when they were making the first Venom? Wouldn't it be cool if we had a Spider-Man cameo? But at the time, the situation with Spider-Man was different.
Well, and also keep in mind, there were tons of reports that Tom Holland's Spider-Man were going to show up in Venom. Obviously, those turned out to be BS, but I mean, there was a lot of talk about that at the time too.
I think, look, we had Ben Affleck show up in Suicide Squad. I would be willing to bet. I think it's probably a good bet. I would say over under 30% that Spider-Man will appear in Venom 2. I think it's over 30%. I do, because why wouldn't he? You know, they have a new alliance with Marvel. They're going to get to make 2 more movies in the MCU with Spider-Man, and I think Sony wants to do everything they can to make sure that Venom 2 is a monster hit. Carnage and Venom already at piques my interest, but having, whether it's a post-credit scene, whether it's a scene with Peter Parker or something, I think that would be kind of neat, you know, and they know it too. And if they could make it happen, I think they will make it happen. I think it's in their interest to make it happen. But like you said, who knows what contract negotiations are going on? Maybe Tom Holland's schedule didn't allow him. You know, he's now in a new movie where he's actually playing some heroin addict in a film produced by the Russo brothers. I mean, he's doing that. Maybe I don't think Tom Holland, if he got a phone call saying, "Hey man, could you do a day or two on the Venom 2 set?" I don't think Tom Holland's the kind of guy that would be like, "No, man, I can't do that." Knowing and seeing him, he'd be like, "Heck yeah, I'll be there." He'd be the most enthusiastic person in the world to do it. Of course, he wouldn't shut up about it, so there'd probably be pictures of him. He'd probably put a selfie up there with Tom Hardy going, "Hey, it's the Tom H's
it's
together
the Tom
here.
and Tom show." I'll say this. I think 30% is a little high, but I'm not far off from you. I'm going to put the line at 25. Which is still, that's a legitimate chance it could happen. I mean, I don't think it's likely, but I think there's a legitimate chance. I'll go as high as 25%. But listen, guys, I also wanted to know what you thought the chances were. So we made that the topic of today's question of the day. And Rob, our question of the day was, amidst all the speculation, do you think Tom Holland will be in Venom 2? And here's what you guys are saying. As of right now, I put this up just before the show started. Over 3,000 of you guys have voted already. 28% of you are saying no, he won't be in it. 12.6% of you are saying yes, he's part of the film. And a full 59.5% of you are saying he very well could be as a quick cameo. So at least 71%, 72% of you guys are saying, believe that he will pop up to one degree or another in a certain big or certain tiny role. But 72% of you guys are thinking that he's at least going to appear in this film. I found that fascinating. I thought that no, he won't be in it at all would be closer to the 50 or 60% mark. But you guys, again, once you're saying he's a significant part of the film, 12.6% of you, maybe a quick cameo, 59.9% of you are saying that, and just no, flat out, he will not be in the film. Which I kind of lean towards, but I think the other two are possible. 28% of you guys are saying that. I'm going to leave that poll up for the rest of the day, guys. So jump on over there. That's on my Twitter account. You can go over there and cast a vote for there. And of course, jump down into the comments section, guys, and let us know what you guys think of that. All right. With that down, let's move on to our fourth main topic today. And our fourth main topic today gets submitted to us by Franklin Barrett, who writes, "Greetings, everyone. I read a crazy article today about the absolutely total domination that Disney had over the box office this year. Basically, one out of every, wrap your heads around this, guys, this is significant, don't just gloss over this. 1 out of every 3 movie tickets sold this year was for a Disney property movie. Have you guys ever seen anything like this? And do you think we will see anything like it again?" All right. Thanks for sending that in, man. And Franklin's not wrong. Look, we've all known that Disney was having a dominant year. We all knew that. That was with all the billion-dollar films they've had, a record that will probably never be touched. You know, their films all being successful, a couple of trips and falls, Dumbo and whatever, but they've had a lot of big success. We knew where they were dominating. We knew they would be number one of the year. But guys, we really have to take a second, because I think we as film fans are guilty of glossing over historic things. And we go, oh yeah, that's cool. And then we move on. I think we need to just take a minute and simmer in this for a second. Let's look at some of these numbers of what Disney has done this year. They set the all-time domestic box office, just domestically, with $3.76 billion. That is an all-time record. They also made on the international box office $7.35 billion, again, another all-time record. And of course, when you have those two all-time records, you end up with the worldwide box office record of, and hold on to your seats, $11.12 billion at the worldwide box office. Also an all-time record. To further give us a sense of the historic nature of this, let's take a look at the market share here. You would have to combine all the tickets sold by Sony, Universal, and Warner Brothers to equal or exceed the amount of box office market share that Disney had. Disney with 33.2% of the tickets sold, that is roughly 1 out of every 3 movie tickets sold this year was to a Disney property. Warner Brothers with 13.7, Universal with 13.4, Sony with 11.9, Lionsgate with 6.8, Paramount at a disappointing year at 5%, 20th Century Fox at 5%, and Other, the infamous Other, at 11%. You would have to combine, Rob, the totals of Sony, Universal, and Warner Brothers together to compete with the numbers that we got by Disney. These are historic numbers, Rob. Historic. So I just want to put it to you. Put this in context from us. What is your reaction to this, and how should we be looking at things like this?
Well, I would say buy Disney stock. No, I think that look, there is no
Disney
doubt
stock.
that under Bob Iger's stewardship, there was a definite plan about what Bob Iger saw for Disney's future and what he wanted to do, and he aggressively went out and did that. Now, you cannot deny the reason that Disney is making so much money is because they're successful. They're really good at what they do. They understand their audience. They're providing entertainment. Despite, look, whatever your thoughts are on Star Wars, put those aside. Whether it's Frozen 2, whether it's the Marvel Cinematic Universe, whether it's Toy Story 4, we are getting, lest we not forget, quality entertainment that is being made by very talented people. Now, there are other questions, I think more nefarious questions, that sort of move outside the realm of movie making in terms of what they're doing, integrating all of their businesses. But again, the market forces, it's time for the other studios to step up their game. You know, Disney's the New England Patriots, but one day they're going to lose Bob Iger and Tom Brady's going away. And we have to see the other teams.
The analogy. I love the analogy.
The other teams have to step up and step up their game, and they have to stop chasing trends, and they have to stop chasing, let's find the new IP, let's make Bloodshot. No, they need, although that might work, I want to see a Valiant Cinematic Universe, but they need to step up their game, and they have to start getting serious if they want to compete on the world stage like this. But for the time being, Disney's dominance, it's not like they're twisting our arms. Like that old National Lampoon cover that said, that had the dog with somebody holding a gun to the dog's head, and it said, buy this magazine or where we shoot this dog. That's not what Disney's doing. They truly are giving us a spoonful of sugar with every movie they make, and it tastes good going down, John. They're taking Mary Poppins' advice, and they're bringing the world what the world wants. And I think it's good for film goers, but it might have larger, more draconian implications in the long run. We shall see.
Well, speaking of which, I wanted to get another perspective on this, because I believe these are really historic numbers that I think a lot of us are guilty of just glancing over a little bit too quickly. So I wanted to bring in another point of view. So I jumped on and talked with a friend of yours and mine, Mr. Christian Harloff from the Schmodown Entertainment Network, and I wanted to talk to Christian, get his perspective on this. So here, check this out. All right, guys, continuing on this conversation about the incredible year that Disney had, an unprecedented year, we are really pleased and excited to be joined by the chairman of the Schmodown Entertainment Network, SEN, over there on YouTube, Mr. Christian Harloff. Christian, thanks a lot for being here, man.
Yeah, John, thanks for having me, brother. Looking forward to talking about this.
Well, and it is something to talk about, because I think sometimes as movie fans, we don't appreciate sometimes when we're seeing ridiculous history. Like Endgame set the opening weekend record. I don't think we appreciate just how momentous that was. And we're looking at Disney right now and the year that they had, again, highlighting these numbers. All-time domestic box office record in 2019, $3.76 billion. Internationally, $7.35 billion, another all-time record, which is, of course, all accumulates in an international worldwide box office record for a year at $11.12 billion. Christian, you and I have been film fans for a very long time. Obviously, we've never seen anything like this. What sort of context do you put this into when you see numbers like this, and how did you react to it?
It's hard not. The first thing I think of is, and I've talked about it many times, I'm in awe of Bob Iger as a businessman.
Right.
And not only for the sheer numbers, it's hard to doubt that a $3.76 billion is just monumental. But you look at the work that's put in over the years of what he has done, the meals that he's had with people to convince George Lucas to sell his company for $4 billion is not an easy task. Acquired Marvel. He acquired, having Pixar to do the Fox deal. And it's very easy and understandable where people could say, oh, my God, look at what Disney's doing. It's just one thing after the next. And they're essentially the Yankees of the studio system, right? But they're doing business. They're making moves. And this is a particular this shows it all paid off, right? It's crazy. 3.76 bill. I don't think it should take away from. I mean, you look at Warner Brothers alone with the 1.5, and look what they did with. I mean, I think the Joker brought in about $1 billion of that. But that alone is a nice task. But then you look at the $3.7 billion because of all the Lion King doing the $1 billion, Aladdin. The Avengers, I mean, Star Wars is probably going to get there or get at least close to it. I mean, it's insanity how the IPs that they have and how they've been delivering on them.
It's been so dominant that if we take the number of tickets that Disney sold, they're saying that 33% of all the movie tickets sold in 2019 went to Disney-owned properties. You have to combine, and I got to make sure I get the right ones here. You have to combine Warner Brothers, Sony, and I can't remember what the third, not Paramount, but one of the other studios. So 3 studios. You have to combine 3 of the studios to get a number bigger than Disney's. Disney literally this year, everywhere in the world, 1 out of every 3 movie tickets sold went to a Disney movie. Of course, 7 or 8 of their movies made $1 billion. Christian, when you look at that sort of lopsidedness of one year, number one, do you think that's sustainable moving forward for Disney? And number 2, do you think that sort of lopsidedness can be good or bad for the overall movie industry?
Oh, man, I think it's a little, to answer your first question, I think no. I don't think they're going to be able to do what they did, at least this year, sustainable, because, look, Marvel's basically starting over again. And you're going to have to get, Marvel's still going to have success, but to have the numbers that they had before leading up to this season finale, if you will, with Avengers Endgame, they're going to have to rebuild and get people interested again in this new storyline. Now, I still don't, that doesn't mean that they're going to be failures. I just don't know if they're going to have the same kind of big numbers that they had in the past. Star Wars is over. So at least Star Wars movies for now are over for the foreseeable future, at least for 3-4 years, whatever it is. So they're not going to see that. Pixar will continue to make money. I think Mulan will probably do pretty well. But to have this kind of year that they have with all the releases, now this is like a once, and I don't say once in a lifetime, but it's not going to happen for a little bit until they start building up a lot of movies inside of their IPs. And as far as the second question goes, is it good or bad? I mean, I think it's bad if the other studios don't start putting together materials that can compete, because I think that it is. I think that they need to start, and you get to a place that it's hard, and I understand this. I think it's easy for fans to say about other studios, oh, why don't you, or studios in general, why don't you take a shot on original IPs? First of all, there are original movies being made all over the place, but as far as original big blockbusters, it's hard to do because of the risk involved.
Yeah, look at Valerian and the City of a Thousand Planets. They tried it, and look how that turned out for them.
It's hard to do because it's hard to you want studios to make that risk, and you want them to take a shot to develop new IP so you could get a new Star Wars. I mean, Star Wars was an original IP that was brand new in 1977. Studios don't work that way anymore, but it's also, and even then it wasn't there was a big risk for them to take it. But if studios will start to develop that, and new franchises can be born, or even familiar franchises that look at something like Fast and the Furious, which no one in a million years thought that they would revitalize and get to like number 9 now. But how many more movies does that franchise have left? So there needs to be more movies from other studios and more franchises. I think it's better. And you've always said this too. Competition is good for all movie fans, but you want to make sure that somebody can hold up the fight.
All right, Christian, thanks a lot for your insight on this, man. And listen, in the meantime, if people want to check out the other stuff that you're doing, where can people find you and your work online?
Oh, we got a lot going on right now, man. We got SEN Live every day, 10 a.m., 12 p.m. on the Schmodown Entertainment Network. A lot of new people, a lot of new faces you're going to see on the show, and some old faces going to be back on the show, so please come check that out. And the Movie Trivia Schmodown's my baby. We're in the off-season right now, but you're going to love this. We're doing a full-on like sports draft, managers. It's going full-on esports. It's going to be great.
I've been following that. All right, thanks a lot for being here, man.
Thanks, John.
All right, thanks to Christian Harloff for being here and being a part of that and giving us his insight. All right, guys, now let's move on to our live questions today. You guys have been sending in a whole lot of live questions. We're going to try to get through as many of those as possible. So let's jump over there right now and start getting to that. And we're going to start things off here with Willow, who wrote in. Let's have a moment of silence for John's headphones, the innocent scapegoat for John's technical difficulties. May you rest in peace. Of course, yesterday, my headphones suffered the ire of Campea for all the technical and I remember yesterday, if you're those you weren't here, I even showed my headphones and the destruction. They're still sitting over there. I leave them out in full view of these headphones as an example to never cause technical problems. All right. Corey O writes, hey, John, I know many people consider this movie to be hot garbage, and even I can admit it's terrible. However, Doom 2005, with Carl Urban and Dwayne The Rock Johnson, is a guilty pleasure of mine. I love the games, and the cast is pretty stellar. The Rock, Carl Urban, Rosamund Pike. Oh, I forgot she was in that. To me, it's great. Hey, listen, Corey, that's the important thing, that to you, it was great. I am one of those people, unfortunately, that considered it to be pretty hot garbage. I was so bad. Rob, do you remember? It was like the first movie that tried to do it like first-person shooter style. They went to that camera angle, which...
Yeah.
Do you have any fond memories of Doom?
No. I don't.
just
you know what? But I have to say, I did watch it because, it did have a sci-fi horror bent to it. And at the time, what is it? John Carmack? John Carmack, the guy who created Doom, was such an impresario in the gaming world, and Doom was that movie too little, too late? I mean, I wanted it to be good. Like, it could have been cool, but again, it is relegated to the scrap heap of history as another video game adaptation that just didn't work out. But it's not unwatchable, John. There is fun to be had in Doom.
You know what? And I think even in the worst of movies, there is fun to be had. And the important thing is we've all got some guilty pleasure movies, and why not that one? Why not that one? All right. 50 Shades of Geek writes, thank you so much for your understanding the other day. John, you made me feel so much better about myself. One of your many talents is making people's lives better just by being who you are. Oh, thanks so much for that, 50 Shades. I appreciate that, man. And thank you for being a part of the community. All right. Ryan Lohner writes, I'd never given a second thought to the animated Star Wars shows before, but after The Mandalorian, I had to know what the deal was with this Darksaber everybody's so excited about, and I'm really liking them so far, and I imagine I'm far from the only one. I mean, that's what a good franchise will do. A good franchise, Rob, I believe, will get you turned on to checking out other things in the franchise. Yep. Like, for instance, Aaron was talking, Aaron Cummings was saying on the show that I'm not a Star Wars fan. I don't watch a lot of Star Wars, but I watched Mandalorian just because her husband wanted to see it so bad, and it made me interested in watching other Star Wars movies. That's what a good movie or show will do. And I've heard a number of people talk about that. Have you?
Absolutely. And, it made me look, when that Darksaber showed up, I wasn't up on my Darksaber lore. The first thing I did was go to trusty Google and find out what relevant episodes of Clone Wars or Rebels should I watch to bring myself up to speed on the lore of the Darksaber. And, isn't it great? And I can just turn on my screens, my black mirrors. I can turn them all on, and I can get whatever I want out of it. And I think it's great. And look, I have to tell you, I know you haven't been big on the Clone Wars, but the Clone Wars series, especially as it moves through what's going on, once you get used to the animation style, there's a lot of great Star Wars in there.
All right, next up here, we've got 50 Shades of Geek Rights. And also, don't worry about the money. I've got 2 big paychecks coming soon, one from work and one from the Army. I'll be just fine. Trust me. Use the money for new headphones. There you go. I do have to get new. I got to say, though, I do have to get new headphones because I'm notoriously cheap. And so while, the cameras I use
Very
are
expensive.
Well, I mean, they're a part of the viewer experience, right? Because the viewers experience the video of the cameras. And so I get these cameras. I'll invest in anything I can do to make the viewer experience better, put in a little bit of a moving shot like we have over here that you can see right now. I'll invest money in microphones, try to get the best sound that we can, all that kind of stuff. But when it comes to anything that doesn't can directly contribute to the viewer experience, like just the headphones I use, these are like $8 headphones. These are like $8 headphones. I'm sure, Rob, you're a professional. You've probably got like $90 headphones, $100 headphones.
Yeah, they're Sony. They're $100, $115 headphones.
Right. I'm really cheap.
So.
See, so it's important. I use really cheap stuff that's just on myself and not part of the viewer experience. Like this chair. Actually, take a look at this chair, guys. Let me get out of this way. If any of you recognize this chair, this was the first chair that we used, that I sat in the very first episode of AMC, what was called For Your Consideration at the time, but later became AMC Movie Talk. This was when we were in the storage closet. We were in the storage closet at AMC, sitting at that little white glass table. This is the chair, because I'm too cheap. My wife has been screaming at me, Rob. Get a new chair. There's no cushion left in the bottom of this thing. Like, it's my ass on hardwood for like ass on hardwood. That could be taken many different ways. But anyway,
some of them
my butt
good.
is sitting on this chair with no padding, and like my butt hurts every single day when I get up. Like, it's got no support. It's totally done, but it doesn't go to the viewer experience. So I don't spend money on it. I'd rather put money into things that increase the viewer experience. But I do need to get new headphones, Rob. These things aren't comfortable. They don't sound good. I should probably get a and I really should get a new chair. I mean, this chair has been with me a long time, Rob. But I think it's time for me to get a new chair. All right, let's move on here. 50 Shades also writes, just to clarify, because this came up the other day, Jesus was born on the 24th of December according to the Jewish tradition. His circumcision was 8 days later. That's why the Christian year starts on January 1st, while the Jewish year starts on the first day of the month of Tishrei, September-ish. I learned something new every day. Rob, as somebody who grew up in Jewish custom, does that ring true? Is that true?
It rings true to me, but I don't know about the dates of Jesus' birth and circumcision. I can't speak to that.
So I find it neat that we learn something new every day.
But that's why you do have the days of awe. You've got Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur when they are.
Well, thank you for the education. I like learning these little things. All right, David Jeffrey writes, hey, John, just wanted to share some cool news with this great community. I was just cast in a Broadway show. That's awesome, dude. I'll be in Dear Evan Hansen for the next year. I watch every day, and I can't wait to bring your show to my dressing room. Love from Alberta. First of all, dude, always good to see something happen to a good Canadian kid. That is really exciting. I love hearing when we get people write in, Rob, who say, I just directed my first short film that I did, just got accepted into this film festival, or, going to be out on Broadway. That is awesome that you're getting to do the things you love to do. Wonderful news. Thank you for sharing that, David. And as they say in Broadway, break a leg, my friend, break a leg. That sounds awesome. Thanks for sharing that, dude. And best of luck. All right, 50 Shades writes, a tyrannical ruler can have any woman he wants whenever he wants. I just assumed that Palpatine forced women to sleep with him against their will, and one of them was probably Rey's grandmother. I thought it was obvious. Misogynistic, sure, but he's the bad guy, right? I mean, yeah. No, I mean, no, that does make sense that Palpatine could have been focused on wanting to create lineage. So that is totally possible and feasible. I mean, we joke about who's getting busy with Palpatine, but obviously we're just kind of joking about that. I mean, obviously he could do whatever he wants. He was the Emperor. So I wouldn't doubt it. I wouldn't doubt it, 50 Shades. Also writes, maybe I misunderstood, but I thought Mandalorian Episode 8 clearly states that only foundlings aren't allowed to take their helmets off. If they would, they wouldn't be Mandalorians anymore. That's what I thought, though probably need to watch the episode again. I don't remember any reference to that only foundlings need to do that. Rob, did you catch that? I mean, it might be in there and I just missed it, but I didn't catch that at all. Did you?
Yeah, I didn't catch that at all. And remember, he does say that he takes his helmet off. He just doesn't take it off in the presence of others.
Well, yeah, people can't see him. People can't see his face. So, I mean, he took it off in the show, right? In the episode Refuge, when he's hiding out in the farmer's village.
Yep.
He took his helmet off so he could eat, right? So, he's got to eat.
And shower, I would assume.
And shower at some point, because that armor's got to start to stink.
We've never really seen a shower in the Star Wars universe, but hey, sure it's there.
Mandalorian was the first Star Wars thing where we actually saw a toilet. So remember episode 1, it's like, we've never seen a toilet. Look, they go to the bathroom in the Star Wars universe. Look at that. All right, 50 Shades also writes, not sure if you like Golden Age superheroes, but I got to recommend Project Superpowers. It's a comic series that takes dozens of superheroes from the 40s and 50s and brings them to the modern age, Captain America style, art by Alex Ross. Enough said. I have not even heard of this. Rob, are you familiar with this?
I'm not up on that, but if Alex Ross drew it, you had me at Alex.
I love the concept, taking a bunch of Golden Age superheroes and bringing them into a modern context. That actually sounds
great.
I'm going to have to pop open my Comixology app on my iPad and see if I can find that, because that sounds like really interesting. Thank you for the heads up on that, 50 Shades. All right. Mr. TJ Lynn writes, 1 of 4. I just got back from a very long 2.5 weeks vacation from my country to San Francisco. Very cool. And then went to New York, and then went to Washington, D.C., and then New Jersey, and then return home to my country. I want to share my movie-going experience during the vacation. I watched Parasite at AMC Kabuki 8 in San Francisco. My number 1 movie of the year now. It's my number 2. It's so good. Then Uncut Gems in AMC Empire 25 in New York. I've been to that movie theater. Good performance from Sandler. I had a doubleheader of Jojo Rabbit and A Beautiful Day. Oh, what a great doubleheader. And Beautiful Day at Landmark's E Street Cinemas in DC. Great movie, both Jojo and Beautiful Day. Then saw Ip Man 4 in Regal Majestic 20 in Silver Springs, Maryland. Easily the worst on this list. I've heard not. I took advantage of the fact that these movies, except Ip Man, are not playing in the cinema in my country. Between the advertised showtime and actual movie start time is roughly 30 minutes, except in Landmark Cinemas, 12 minutes, just like in my country. I also saw The Last Black Man in San Francisco. Great. That's one I didn't see. I didn't see The Last Black Man in San Francisco. I heard good things about it, though. And Art of Self-Defense in Domestic Flight from San Francisco to New York. Happy New Year. Woo! That is some busy movie watching time. And that is awesome that, first of all, it's awesome, TJ, that you got to take advantage of the fact, because there's a lot of countries that don't get movies at the same time as we do. And the fact that you were able to take advantage of the fact that you got to be on vacation while these hot movies are playing, but they're not playing in your country yet, and you get to watch them now. And for added measure, you got to throw in a couple on your flight going back and forth, which I assume might have. That sounds like an epic vacation. 2.5 weeks. You went to California, New York. You got to see all these movies, all that kind of stuff. That sounds really impressive, and I'm glad you were able to get caught up on those films. And a lot of them, these are going to be Oscar contenders, by the way. So that's awesome you were able to get caught up on that. And thanks for sharing the details of your trip, man. That sounds like a hell of a journey. I'm glad you had a good time, and I'm glad you were able to make it back safe and sound, Mr. TJ. Hope you get a chance to return again. All right. Chris Castellani just sends in a tip to be supportive. Thank you so much, Chris. Appreciate that around here, man. Murray Reich writes, hey, John, regarding Thursday's show, after you read my first message, you missed my second. Oh, I missed it. Regarding cats. You know what? I find that does happen. Sometimes when people have messages back to back and I'm constantly trying to keep up and scroll, I just see the name and I realize, and I think, oh, I've already read that. And then I move on to the next one. And sometimes that happens. I apologize for that, Marie. I'll see if I can go back and take a look and find that. My deepest apology, because I know you write in questions all the time. You support the channel quite often. So my apologies for that, man, that I missed that. Simon then writes, I hate to disappoint you, John, but it is true that the I have telepathy quote is right there between 1427 and 1430 minutes, tested on Disney Plus and Amazon Prime. And I hate to disappoint you, Simon, it's not. I went back again. I had a friend over last night, and again, we went back, we opened it up and played it back. And I'm like, and I played that exact spot. It's like, do you hear anything? It's like, no. I said, listen to it again. No. All right. Okay. But now listen for I have telepathy. All right. Played it back for him again. No. But I don't know, Rob, I know I wanted to ask you, and I don't know if you had a chance to do it. Did you have a chance to go back and review that footage?
I have not done it yet, but somebody did send me a isolated. They've played around with it. I haven't listened to it yet, but I was going to listen to it after the show and see if it's actually there.
I got the same thing. I'm like, all right. You know, they wrote it to me saying, I've highlighted the audio and blah, 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 and here it is. I still don't hear it. I hear random syllables with pathy in it, but I
First of all, John, if they wanted you to hear when they're mixing a movie that costs as much as Endgame did, they want you to hear it. So the idea that there's something that's buried in it doesn't make sense, because that would have been a joke. It would have been a plot point. It's not like they're trying to obscure something there. So I don't quite know what to say.
Yeah, but listen though, you haven't heard it yet. So maybe when you listen to it, maybe it'll be clear as day to you. For me, I want to hear it. I just don't hear it. So, but let me know. We'll have to talk about this on Monday. Make sure this weekend you listen for that, Rob, because I want us to. I want to hear your opinion on this on Monday. All right, let's move on here. But thank you for saying that in, Simon. Appreciate that. Jonathan writes in, hey, John, I will be seeing 1917 on Saturday. Looking forward to sharing my quick movie review. Hope you remember this acronym because I ain't writing it all out every time. I also want to limit my tips. I'm just a kid with limited expenses. No problem, man. You don't have to send in anything, dude. Don't worry about it. Then John S. writes, oh, sorry. Then the second part of Jonathan is, but I really want to join the chat too. Still got to know my limits. I work at Jamba Juice for Pete's sake. Anyway, thanks, John, for everything you do. We'll be back Monday with a QMR. And by the way, let me reemphasize something I said on the show the other day. And this will be the last time I reference this, but I mentioned this on the show the other day. Our show exists because people support the show by watching it, by sending in tips, that's how our show exists. That said, while I am very grateful that people want to support the show with tips and with super chats and all that kind of stuff, please make sure you do it within your means. What I don't want to find out is that you spent your car payment money for sending in tips or for sending in super chats, and now you're going to be short on your rent. Or like use expendable income. And if you choose to use expendable income on the John Campea Show and you want to support the show, awesome. Thank you so much for that. But please make sure that if you support the show financially, you do it within your means. I am much happier that you don't support the show financially, but you stay within your means than you give me money you couldn't afford to support the show with. I would much rather you just watch the show and enjoy the show on that level. So thank you so much for the desire to support the show. Just if you can't do it realistically, I would rather that you didn't. Please. I would rather that you didn't. So that's all. So stay within your means, man. I'm just happy that you're here as a film fan, dude. I'm seriously just happy that you're here as a film fan. That's all you need to do. All right. Let's go on now. John S. writes, I wanted to see Uncut Gems as I love Sandler's other dramatic movie, Reign Over Me. He deserved an Academy Award nomination for Reign Over Me, by the way, I believe. But I read over 500 F-bombs are in it, working to approximately 4 times a minute and other profanities. I don't mind if it adds to the drama, as in ROM. I don't know what that means. Oh, Reign Over Me. But 500 times seems overkill to me. It's always difficult to say, Rob, when you hear just a numeric value, like there's over 500 F-bombs in a movie, which, by the way, I don't know if that's accurate or not. I just don't know. But even if it is, it's hard to say it's excessive. Does 500 uses of the F-bomb look excessive? Obviously it does. But is it excessive? It's hard to say out of context, because you may watch the film and it might just be such a natural part of that individual's personality culture that it just feels normal and fluid and fits right in. 500 does sound very excessive. And I don't like swearing just for the sake of swearing. You obviously guys know I don't mind swearing, but I don't like swearing for the sake of swearing. I don't like nudity for the sake of nudity, although I love the filthy, bring on the filthy. I love good nudity, but I don't like nudity just for the sake of it. I don't want sex in a movie just for the sake of having sex there. Like if it's used, if it's used to further an emotion that the filmmaker wants to get out of the audience, if it's used to make it feel organic, if it's used to help something in the story, then do it all day. But it's hard to say without seeing it. I don't know, Rob, how do you see that? You see a number like 500 use of the F-bomb. Does look excessive, is it?
Well, I tell you, I recently watched my 4K Scarface Blu-ray, and it didn't seem excessive then. Actually, it's my 4K, I should say Blu-ray, 4K Blu-ray. No, but I think anything in a film, whether it's gore, whether it's sex, whether it's swearing, it can be excessive. And what you don't want is you don't want your content to take away from the story you're telling or take away from your characters. But in a movie like Scarface, I don't find it to be excessive. It's just the way Tony Montana talks. So I think it really depends on the character and the story. I don't like it as much as I love gore and sex, man. I love sex and violence, all that. But if it's too much, it detracts. Anything can detract from the story and the characters, and I don't like that.
I want to give an example of this. Because I had somebody write into me to complain about it, and I understand where they were coming from, but and I'm about to give a minor spoiler away for one of the middle episodes of The Witcher, just in case any of you haven't seen it yet. But there's an episode of The Witcher when Geralt meets Yennefer for the first time. Have you gone up to that episode,
no.
Rob? Okay. Well, this is just a context. It's just a context. I'm not giving away a big plot point. But when he meets her, it's in a room. He walks into a room where there is a giant eyes wide shut orgy going on, like a full blown eyes wide shut style orgy going on. And Yennefer is sitting there at the front. You can tell she has kind of cast some sort of spell over the whole thing, and she is causing this orgy. I mean, she's not participating. She's just sitting back there as this whole thing's going on. And in hindsight, when you reflect on the scene, to me, it wasn't excessive because the fact that she was orchestrating that told me a lot about where she was as a character.
Yeah. About
how dissatisfied she is with things, how it takes extremes to kind of just even remotely entertain her. It just, to me, it spoke to the character. And so I get it. A lot of people see a big orgy scene on a screen and think, well, that's just gratuitous. But I would make the argument that it was actually doing character work by having it. You could do it where it's just really excessive, but I thought it was speaking to the character. So in that sense, Rob, I think it's fine. And again, I haven't seen Uncut Gems, so maybe I'll watch and I'll just think, yeah, they were just dropping F-bombs to pretend like they're cool. I don't know. But I haven't seen it yet. But sometimes, even though it looks excessive on paper, it can actually fit right into the narrative. All right. An anonymous viewer writes in and sends in a $50 tip. Thank you for that. Whenever we get a $50 tip, by the way, we meant to publish all the $50 tip questions yesterday because when somebody sends in a $50 tip, and I don't expect people to do it often, I like to honor that by recording an answer to their question in their own 3 to 5 minute video, and we put it up on the front page of my YouTube channel. We've got a few. We got a little over 10 that are backed up right now, and we meant to publish those last night, but with everything that went on with a companion video I had to do, and then the whole Collider thing happened and blah, blah, blah. It kind of took away from the day, but we will be publishing those very soon. Before the next show, these will all be published. So we'll get to this one as well. But let me just address it quickly here. I've always loved your independence, presentation, and logical show structure. Thank you so much for that, Anonymous. If you've been ahead of the game by avoiding these silly corporate moves while you provide for your family. Question: how did your implant go? A dentist fan, no video response needed. Okay, well, you're saying we don't need to do a standalone video. Well, anyway, thank you then just for supporting the channel. On that level. I really appreciate it. I have still not had the implant. I still haven't had the implant done. There was a not a bad one. There was a complication that required them to do something that was going to take another 6 months for something to set and all that kind of stuff. So the implant still hasn't been done. So I will get around to doing that shortly. Actually, within the next 4 weeks, I'm going to get to go in and finally start to get that done where they're going to revisit it. But anyway, thank you so much for asking about that. I appreciate that, asking about my health and things going on. Thank you very much for that, Anonymous. All right. Anthony Gonzalez writes, I'm the dentist, FYI. Didn't want to be okay. So Anthony, thank you for sending that in, Anthony. I appreciate that, man. And thank you for being considerate enough to clarify that you're not just an anonymous viewer. All right. Jonathan writes, 1 of 5. Screw it. I know I said I'm limited, but I want to share my top picks for best actor and actress and supporting ones too. Don't have many film fan friends. So here's a quick rundown using only their last names for space. We'll get back to Alan here in a second. Jonathan writes, best actor, Murray, Banderas, Phoenix, Roman Davis, Pitt, Pattison, Paul Walter Hauser, yeah, that was a good one, and Daniel Kaluuya. Really? For Queen and Slim? I thought he was really good. I don't know that I put him in the best actor race, but by the way, Queen and Slim is really, really good. Supporting actor, Rockwell, yeah. Pitt, yes. Defoe. By the way, Pitt for lead actor. So you saying that for, what was that terrible space movie he was just in, Rob?
I'm not. Oh, Ad Astra. No,
Ad Astra. Really? You put him at best actor for Ad Astra? Okay, that's interesting. But Brad Pitt for Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, abso-freaking-lutely. Defoe, absolutely. Tom Hanks, absolutely. Shia, absolutely. Timothy Chalamet, actress, Zellweger, Awkwafina. You know, Awkwafina really was quite good in The Farewell. I mean, she exceeded my expectations. I don't know that I'd give her a Best Actress nomination, but she did really exceed my expectations, I gotta say. Constance Wu, I thought she was good, but I really thought Jennifer Lopez was the star of Hustlers. Charlize Theron, ScarJo, Jodie Turner-Smith. Supporting actress, Lopez, yeah, I you know what? I could see her getting a Best Supporting Actress for Hustlers. I really can. I thought she was quite good. Margot... Do you mean Margot Robbie? Anyway, Florence Pugh and ScarJo. Okay, now that I've burned through my money, what are your thoughts? Well, I gave my thoughts as I went through. Yeah, there are a number of them that are clearly front runners. I agree. A number of them there that I don't think I would put in. Do any of these picks, Rob, that Jonathan just kind of threw in there, any of them stand out to you as you think, yeah, definitely will be, or any of these picks he put in there that you think definitely won't be on the big lists?
I think it's, I have to say, based on the Golden Globes, I think it's all pretty open. I mean, I don't know. Obviously, there's things that we know are going to be there, but I don't know. I like you keep bringing up Jojo Rabbit, and you said that you don't know if Jojo Rabbit's going to be on there, and to me, that's a huge question mark, and I don't quite know, I like.
The interesting thing here this year, though, is that Scarlett Johansson, this doesn't happen often, but to what Jonathan was writing, I am expecting that Scarlett Johansson is going to get both a Best Lead Actress nomination for Marriage Story, and I think there's a very good chance she gets a Best Supporting Actress nomination for Jojo Rabbit. And I mean, I was saying before, it's hard not to say that this isn't Jon Favreau's year, considering all the things that he was able to accomplish both in front of and behind the camera. But I mean, for the Oscars, it could be Scarlett Johansson's year, because not only is she going to get nominated for best lead actress for Marriage Story, she's got a legit chance of winning. I'm not saying she will, but she's got a legit chance of winning. I don't think she'll win Best Supporting Actress, but I mean, anything's possible. I mean, look, we could see her standing there with 2 Academy Awards at the end of the night. How crazy would that be? I mean, seeing an actress win 2 acting Academy Awards in the same year, I don't know. I'm saying I don't know. I don't know if it's ever been done before. I'm not saying it hasn't. I'm just saying I don't know if it's ever been done before.
I want to know that. That's an interesting stat.
Yeah.
Is that true?
I know there have been years that a performer has been nominated for Best Actor or Actress and nominated for Best Supporting Actor or Actress. That has happened before. But winning, I don't know if it ever has. I'll have to look in. If any of you guys know that for sure, email me at john@thejohncampeashow.com and let me know. I'd love to hear that. Okay, Alan wrote, Where'd Alan go? There he is. With fans divided over Man of Steel, Batman vs. Superman, and Justice League, is this the perfect time for Superman to go back to television? Smallville, Lois and Clark Adventures were a big hit with the fans, whereas Superman Returns and Man of Steel seem to be more divisive. What are your thoughts? Well, I don't know about that. To me, Superman, I mean, when you look at Smallville and Lois and Clark, these were kind of Elseworld versions of Superman, right, Rob? I mean, like,
yeah.
Smallville was never Superman. Smallville was Smallville. It clearly broke with a lot of Superman canon. It was its own Elseworld kind of thing, and it was great. But that's why when they were doing Superman Returns and everybody was screaming bloody murder, Tom Welling should be Superman in the movie. It's like, this isn't Smallville the movie. They're making Superman, not
right.
Smallville the movie. Although I love Tom Welling, I really do. But I don't know, because look, they're doing Superman on television right now, and a lot of people don't like it. And apparently they're doing his own spin-off show. And unlike movies, the people who don't like it just won't watch the show. I mean, that's just it. They just won't watch it. And then some people will, and the people who watch it will assumedly like it because they're watching the show. I don't know. I think Superman is a character for the big screen. That's just my opinion. I'm not yucking on anybody's yum if you love Superman on the small screen. Like I said, there has been great historical stuff like Smallville. But personally, I just think he's better suited to a movie. But I don't know. That's just me. What do you think, Rob?
Well, Superman inherently has special effects considerations, and I know they're doing it on Supergirl, but it makes a Superman show, the way we want to see Superman, I think, expensive. If you want to see him fighting supervillains or going to War World and fighting Mongol or something like that, it could be tough. I mean, the thing about Lois and Clark and also Smallville was they sort of took away the need for elaborate special effects by making it more about relationships and growing up and his life as a human. But I think what we want from a Superman movie is we want to see the epic nature of what that character can do represented. So I don't know if on the small screen we're going to get it anyway. We're going to get that Superman and Lois show. It's coming, so we'll know. But I want to see like a Lord of the Rings Superman movie that has that much scope. I want to see something epic. I want to see Superman involved in something huge. I mean, why can't we get the Infinity War and Endgame over at DC with Superman, where it's that big, where some dude's throwing a moon at Superman? That's what I want.
All right, and with that said, guys, we have come to the end of the time that Robert Meyer Burnett has for us today. He's got other things he's got to run and do, but don't worry, we're going to continue on for at least another half hour or so, taking your live questions. But Rob, in the meantime, and thank you so much for being here, dude, where can people find you and all your goodness online before you're back again on Monday?
You can find me on Instagram at Robert Meyer Burnett. Find me on Twitter at BurnettRM, or find me on my own YouTube channel, The Burnett Work, and my show, Robservations.
All right. Thanks a lot for that, dude. Always great to have you here. And we will, of course, talk to you again on Monday, my friend. Have a good one.
You too.
All right. With that down, guys, let's move on now and keep taking your questions. We have a lot of questions for you that we still have to get through. So let's jump over to it. And we're going to start things off and keep things going, I should say, here with, where do we go here? Sorry, I got turned around. Okay, here we are. We're at Supercam13, who writes, I may not be for or against the Snyder Cut, but I have to say, hashtag release the JJ cut, hashtag release the Lucas cut, hashtag release all the Rise of Skywalker cuts, laughing face. Thanks for helping me become a better movie fan, and may the filthy be with you. Well, thank you so much, man. And I appreciate, I mean, this, it just seems like now whenever somebody doesn't like the way a movie turned out, they want to scream for a director's cut. And it's like, okay, whatever. But it is what it is. Thanks for being part of the community, Supercam. I appreciate that, man. And then Supercam also writes in, Padme is a cougar. Hey, listen, don't laugh. I remember back in the day, me and my friends, we had that exact same discussion. Because like she's older. Now, granted, she's not really that much older than Anakin, but she's a older woman going for the young Anakin Skywalker. Maybe that's why they had to keep their marriage a secret, because, you know, maybe A love relationship between the two of them, depending on their ages, may not have been legal in some states. All right, Mike Riff writes, hey, John, in the last 40 years or so, we've had 9 films. You know what? I'm going to take off my headphones now because I guess I don't need to look at the headphone line in my head. All right. This just makes it easier for me now. Okay. Hey, John, in the last 40 years or so, we've had 9 episodic and 2 spin-off live-action Star Wars films, 11 in total. Do you think the next 40 years that there will be 11 more films, episodic or not? Thoughts? Thanks, and bring on the filthy. Yes, I do. I think minimum we'll get that many, probably more. Now, it's weird to say that right now, because right now, we don't even know when the next Star Wars movie's coming out. At the moment, we don't even know. But I believe Star Wars will find its rhythm, and I believe they're probably going to get into a once every 2 years. I think we're going to get a Star Wars movie once every 2 years. I think they're going to move away from, a movie every single year, which is too bad, because I think one movie a year is fine. But I think they're going to move away from that. I don't think we're going to get into one movie every 3 or 4 years. I think that after a couple of years right now, they're going to settle into a one movie every 2 years. So yeah, I actually do believe, it's a great question, but I actually do believe that over the next 40 years, we will see well beyond 11 more films. And then we'll see how it all works out. But first, we got to get our next movie, and we don't even know what the next Star Wars movie will be or when we're going to get it. So we got to keep that in mind. All right, Christopher Chow writes, imagine a world if Walt Disney never existed. The world would be a less happier place. The things Walt Disney did for family entertainment is endless. Oh, no, it's true. Imagine, what would entertainment in the world look like? It would be different. It wouldn't necessarily be better. It wouldn't necessarily be worse. But if the Walt Disney Company wasn't around right now, something else would have filled that void, because nature abhors a vacuum. But it is crazy when you look at what this company has been over the years and where it is now. Its influence can't be denied at all, Christopher Chow. And by the way, I'm going back to Disneyland in 2 weeks because the new Rise of the Resistance ride is opening up. I'm so excited. Everybody's raving about this ride, and everybody's going on it at Universal or at Disney World down in Florida is talking crazy about it. So I'm going to get to go to at Disneyland here in a couple of weeks. Very excited about it. All right. JJ the Sith Plane writes, I like that name. Oh, sends in a $50 tip. So we will, if there's a question here, we will do it in its own standalone video, but let's see what it is first. Hey, Rob, unfortunately you just missed him. The next time you play golf with Bob Iger, or if you can text him right now, tell him to release the JJ cut. It seems he only listens to you. You were one of the first to mention Moon Knight to be made as a TV series. Well, obviously there's no question, but thank you for sending that in, JJ, and thank you for being, for supporting the channel on that level. We appreciate it. Again, I really got to emphasize here, every single movie ever made has a lot of stuff that's left on the cutting room floor. And were there scenes shot that didn't get into the movie? Of that, I have no doubt. Was there at one point a different running time? I believe there were probably 3 or 4 different running times for this movie. Of that, I have no doubt. Is it gonna change anything? It's not gonna change anything. I have serious doubts that it's going to make, look, I love that there are people who like the Rise of Skywalker. I love that people enjoyed The Last Skywalker. I love that people enjoyed The Rise of Skywalker. That is awesome. I personally didn't find it to be a very good movie, but that's just me. I'm not trying to yuck on your yum. That said, I really don't think releasing scenes that weren't included, I don't think that's going to make a bad movie good. I just don't. And I think it's just, become another stick. It just becomes another stick that a dog can, that we as in this analogy, we movie fans, we're the dogs, right? We're the excited dogs. It's just another stick that we want to chew on, to use as another outlet. I think a lot of people are just going to use this whole idea of a JJ cut to use this issue as another avenue to express their displeasure with the franchise. I really think that's all it is. And I think most people know it's not going to be any better of a thing. It's not going to be any worse. It's just going to be different. And I really don't think it's going to change things much at all. And hey, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm wrong. I'm open to that, but I really don't think it'll change anything. I don't think Star Wars The Rise of Skywalker is a good movie. I don't think throwing in a couple of deleted scenes are going to change it, suddenly magically make... I don't think seeing Finn open a door with the Force is going to make a bad movie a good movie. I don't think having a scene where Kylo Ren is kind of having some, like, struggling a little bit, thinking about something, I don't think that's magically going to make a bad movie a good movie. You know, so... It's the fun to see. The reason I didn't like The Rise of Skywalker, and there's a lot of things in the Rise of Skywalker that I do enjoy. There are things you've heard me talk about. I think there are some good things in Rise of Skywalker, and I totally understand why a lot of people love it, and that's great. But for me, it's the fundamentals of the movie that made it an overall not a good movie. And those fundamentals don't change just by throwing in a few deleted scenes. So that's just my take on it. Your take may be different, and that's totally cool. That's why we're all film fans together. We get to have different points of view from each other. But anyway, thanks for sending that in, Jay. And I'll get on Burnett to reach out to Bob Iger before their next racquetball date. They play racquetball every Tuesday, so you know. So I'll get him to do that before the next racquetball date. All right, let's see where are we at here. Next up, Drew writes in: Has there any film in history that has there been any film in history that has legitimately scared you where you couldn't stop thinking about it for days? American Werewolf in London. Look, I've talked about this before, but American Werewolf in London, not to be confused with its very bad reboot sequel-ish American Werewolf in Paris, totally different thing. But American Werewolf in London, to this day, it is the only film that I cannot watch at night alone with the lights off. I mean, it's the only one. And I think as a kid, when my parents got like a Laserdisc player or rented a VHS player or something like that and got Jaws, and I saw Jaws for the first time at home on VHS, I'm like, yeah! And I had to get my mom, I had to go sleep in the room with my mom because I was like traumatized. I couldn't even go near a sink if there was water in it. So there was Jaws, but definitely American Werewolf in London. That's the one for me, Drew. All right. Jay the Sith Plane also sends, again, another huge tip. Thank you so much for the support, Jay. I really appreciate that, man. Writes in, also, after watching The Rise of Skywalker, which I did not like, I went back and rewatched the prequels, and I got to say I appreciate them way more than I did before. So much lore in those movies. One of the things that I will always say, and I've said this before, Jay, and I'll throw this in here again, is... I think the prequels are just garbage. Now, that doesn't mean there aren't some good individual things. I'll talk all day about the things that I think are good in the prequels. The lightsaber fights, why am I freezing on the name of the pod races? I know some people trash on the pod race scenes. I love the pod race scene. I think the pod race scene is one of the most exciting, thrilling, sound design, everything. I just think that whole sequence is fantastic. I love Yoda fighting with... I know some people laugh at the Yoda lightsaber thing. I love the Yoda lightsaber. Overall, I think the prequels are garbage. And I think every new film is 10 times better than all the prequel films. That said, one of the things you have to give to the prequels is this. It totally knew where it was. It all ties together perfectly. The prequels all tied together perfectly. George Lucas had a starting point and an ending point. And maybe I thought his points were garbage, but there was a natural flow to the story that went from the beginning of The Phantom Menace right through to the end of The Revenge of the Sith. It was cohesive. It was filled with lore. I may have thought it turned out terrible, but it had that, and a cohesive, tied together, clear story narrative flow is something that is drastically missing from the new trilogy. Even though overall I like the new trilogy, despite the fact that I didn't like The Rise of Skywalker, I still overall like the new trilogy. But that is something that the prequels did right, that the sequel trilogy did wrong. And I have got to agree with you on that. I have absolutely got to agree with you on that, Jay. I think that's absolutely one of the big glaring things that was missing from the new trilogy, that the prequels themselves, as bad as I think they were, that the prequels had and did right. And I confer. I completely confer. All right. Drew Larson writes, and again, thanks, Jay, for supporting the channel on that level, man. Drew Larson writes, follow-up. What's the scariest movie scene in film history for you? It could be from that same movie that you mentioned before. It's hard to say, like... I mean, there's... look, I will just go back to, like, what does scary mean? That in your head you're scared, that you're physically freaking out? It's hard for me to say off the top of my head, Drew, because that's not something I just carry around on the top of my head all the time. I'd have to sit down and think about it. But I will tell you a scene in a horror movie that got the biggest reaction out of me, that I almost vomited because all my muscles were so tense that I nearly puked. And it sounds silly, but it's in A Quiet Place. And it has nothing to do with the monsters. It's when Emily Blunt is simply walking down the stairs and there's a rusty nail sticking out of a stair, and she steps on a nail. This is how brilliantly made that movie is. Something as simple as a movie with alien monsters that are ripping people apart. And the thing that gets the biggest, most intense reaction is this, and the way it was shot was perfect, was her walking down the stairs. As she's walking down the stairs and the camera reminds us there's this nail there, oh my God, from my toes, my feet, my fingers, my chest, everything completely clenched up like a rubber ball going, ah! And then she steps on it and I almost vomited. Like, it was just so intense and got such a huge reaction out of me. Like, maybe I'd be able to come up with some others. If I really thought about it, but just off the top of my head, that's one that comes to my mind. All right, Christopher Chow writes, you're right, John, this is the year of Iger and Horn. Disney has set a new box office record with $13.2 billion of box office profits in 2019. Do you think this will ever be repeated again? I don't think so. By the way, you'll notice that number is contradictory to the number we showed before. Of course, that this number here of 11.12, the 13 number is if you include Fox box office, which, I mean, for whatever reason, there are some reasons that Variety pointed out that they're not really counting that because some really shouldn't be counted. But regardless of what the actual number was, do we think this number will ever be repeated again? Ever? Listen, whenever you ask a question that has the word ever or could in it, the answer is always yes. Could this ever happen? Ever? Sure. Yeah. Ever? Could it happen? Sure, it could. Will it? Not for a long time. Not for a long time. I don't see this record, this box office mark set by Disney, being touched for at least 7, 8, 9, 10 years. I mean, really. I mean, and of course, in 10 years from now, inflation will be different. There's a lot of other considerations, and who knows what the movie landscape is going to look like at that point. But as of right now, it's going to be a while, dude. It's going to be a while before we ever see that touched again. Absolutely, Christopher. All right. Next up, Tom Gillard writes, I'm Ray. Ray who? Release the JJ cut. I don't believe the rumors. I don't care if it's real. I'm happy with the movie that we got. And that's the important thing, Tom. I'm glad you enjoyed it. And listen, maybe the rumors are true, maybe they're not. To me, it's just a matter of who cares. Every movie has footage that didn't get used. Every single movie had different run times at one point. And every movie has things you can throw in. I just don't think at the end of the day it'll make any difference. So maybe the rumors are true. The rumor about Disney purposely trying to sabotage JJ is, you got to be, like I said, you got to be special kind of dumb to believe that. But the other stuff, oh yeah, maybe that's true because that just makes sense with everything we already know. I mean, it's nothing revelatory. We already knew that there would be scenes that were cut out, that maybe there were different kind of visions for this or that there was a different runtime. But at the end of the day, I just don't think it matters because I don't think it would have made any difference. But yeah, that's just me, Tom. The important thing is you enjoyed the movie, and that's awesome. All right, 50 Shades of Geek writes, it still bugs me that no one is asking the really important question from Avengers Endgame. Why did Scott think Die Hard was a time travel movie at Die Hard? Oh, wait, that doesn't work. That's a good question. Why did I don't know. I think he was just trying to pull off. I think that was the joke. He was just trying to pull out random movie names and then realized that was just one that didn't apply. I laughed at that moment, by the way. I thought that moment was pretty funny. All right, Brian Clark writes, I thought that Disney Plus was about ending that vault BS and allowing access to all of their own content on an unlimited basis. Now they're suddenly pulling Home Alone movies and others, including a Pirates movie. Why would Disney do this? Well, listen, Brian, one of the things that we've talked about this many times. There are a lot of complicated issues with rights that these older movies would have had in place long before Disney Plus ever launched. And then you might say, but John, the Home Alone movies were on. Yes, but maybe there was a window in the existing licensing agreements that Home Alone had with other companies that would have allowed them to put it on there in this time window and whatever. And now that the time window's over, now they got to pull it down because of other pre-existing licensing agreements. That's what everybody keeps forgetting. That all these movies have some form of licensing agreements with other companies to some degree. And that's why Disney Plus wasn't able to launch with like every MCU movie on Disney Plus in North America right from day one, because there were already pre-existing licensing agreements. And it's a very complicated, tangled web that we just can't understand. So for most part, like honestly, 3 or 4 years from now, Disney Plus will be in a completely different situation. Any existing agreements will have lapsed. All their new movies, they'll already keep their schedules cleared as far as other licensing agreements to make sure they can go right on Disney Plus. But you're going to have to give them some time to be able to bring that about. Until then, we're going to get a ton of their content, but there's always going to be some stuff that it's going to be problematic and have issues because there are going to be other licensing issues that we're just going to have to be patient. We're just going to have to be patient for a while. All right. Thomas Kaler sends in a $50 tip. So if there's a question here, it will be answered in its own video, but let's touch on it first quick here, Thomas, and thank you for supporting the channel on that level, man. We really appreciate it around here. Hey, John, love the show. Thank you so much. Top 10 favorite of the year for me is 10 Midsommar. That's one I didn't hate it. I didn't hate Midsommar, but for whatever reason, it just didn't kind of click with me. Anyway, 9, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Number 8, Knives Out. Number 7, Honey Boy. Number 6, Jojo Rabbit. Number 5, Joker. Number 4, Marriage Story. Number 3, Uncut Gems. Number 2, Parasite. Number 1, The Lighthouse. Your thoughts? Well, again, I'll go deeper into this when we answer this on your own standalone question. I will say this about Lighthouse for now. I can't have Lighthouse at number 1. I'm not even sure Lighthouse is going to make it on my top 10. Because of this, I was fascinated by the movie and my eyes were glued to the screen for Lighthouse. Every moment that Willem Dafoe and Robert Pattinson were giving exposition and talking and doing their monologues, because the acting is incredible in it. But I did walk out of the movie going, what the F did I just watch? Like, what was that? What was that supposed to be? And that takes something away from me. Overall, I still enjoyed it, and I would totally be all for, Dafoe and Pattinson getting Oscar nominations. I'm all for it. And them in it made it watchable, but that's the thing. Anyway, Thomas, I'll go more into it when we answer your question. Its own standalone video. Keep your eyes open for it. It'll be coming in the next 24 hours, or probably before tomorrow's show, so keep your eyes open for that. All right, Reggie L. writes, I want to clear up my submission from yesterday. I go 3 times a year max to the movies, and Monday a week later is being so particular with my viewing habits limiting me. Am I missing out? P.S. It seems be too much trouble to enforce assigned seating now. Well, first of all, on your second part of your question, it is not trouble to enforce assigned seating. It's just simple. You go in, you go to your seat. And if somebody's in your seat, you just say, actually, this is my seat. It's not trouble. It's really quite easy. I've never had an issue. I have one time in the past 3 or 4 years seen a situation where somebody went up, and I'm saying it never happens. I'm just saying I've only personally, in the hundreds of times I'm in theaters, I've seen it happen once where somebody got to their seat, somebody else was sitting in it, and they said, oh, I think you're in my seat, and showed them that that's their seat, and the person refused to move. I've only seen that happen one time. In the hundreds, if not thousands of times that I've been in the theater in the last couple of years, that has happened. And that resolved very quickly because the person then just went and got an usher, showed them their seat. The usher came and said, I'm sorry, sir, you're going to have to move. You're in somebody else's seat. And the guy got up and moved, and that was it. It was done. So it's really a super, super easy thing to deal with. It's the easiest thing in the world. It makes life a lot easier. That said, is going a Monday a week later, is that limiting you? I don't think so. I mean, really, you're still going to see the movie. It's the same movie they're showing. The only thing that I see that it might limit you or be an impedance in any way is the fact that, oh, you might be behind on being able to talk to your friends about it. And maybe for some bigger movies, you run the risk of hearing some spoilers if you're going to go see it 10 days after the movie releases. But other than that, I really don't see how that's limiting you in any way. I think you're perfectly good. Actually, my brother-in-law, so I'm married to Anne, and Anne's sister, Olive, married a Canadian guy too. Olive married a Canadian dude. My brother-in-law, his name is Stan. And Stan is a movie fan, but he'll wait till like a month after a movie comes out because he doesn't like going to a theater when it's even half full. He likes to have it where it's a practically empty theater or only 1/3 or a quarter full. He just feels more comfortable that way, right? So he's a movie fan, but he goes like a month after a movie opens, even the big ones. And he's a massive Star Wars fan. And I don't even think he's seen Rise of Skywalker yet. He likes to wait until it's nice and emptied out and then he goes. So I don't think you're missing out on anything. It's just that you're missing out on maybe be able to talk to some fans about some things in that 10-day window. And maybe you're at a little bit of a risk of getting some spoilers. But other than that, I think it's a perfectly good movie going habit, man. You do you. If that's what works for you, that's what you do. All right. 50 Shades writes, John, who wins in a fight, Superman, Supergirl TV show, or Forky from Toy Story 4? Forky wins. You're damn right. Fuck you, Superman. Yeah, I told you, Forky. Anyway, Forky wins that fight against the Supergirl TV Superman. Yeah, that guy gets beat up every day. That Superman gets beat up every freaking day. Forky takes him out just like that. 50 Shades of Geek also writes, is Raya and the Last Dragon coming this year an original movie? I'm tired of people saying Disney is only doing remakes. All of 2019 and most of 2018 was remakes and sequels. That's it. Look at the release calendar before saying stupid things like that. It is an original film, yes. And I remember being I'm really looking forward to Raya and the Last Dragon, by the way. I'm very excited about that movie. When I was at D23, they did a presentation. They brought the director on stage. They showed us some clips from it. I am stoked for Raya and the Last Dragon. And yes, I mean, it's based on some lore, but it's as far as the movie medium goes, it's an original film, and I'm very, very excited for it. I'm really excited for that film. All right. C writes and sends in a $50 tip. So if there's a question here, we will answer it in its own video. Thank you for supporting the channel on that level, C. So we read, greetings. Just wanted to give my solution for the Mandalorian piracy issue. Okay, here we go. I live in Sweden and don't have Disney Plus available. So I got a VPN and an iTunes gift card to pay for Disney Plus for The Mandalorian and give the creators the money they deserve. That is an interesting thing because by the way, and I'll just touch on this quickly now, but we'll address it deeper in your own standalone video. So keep your eyes open for that. But I have said for a while now, I do not condone piracy in any way, shape, or form. That said, this is a very unique, this whole Disney Plus situation is a very unique situation where you have people around the world who don't want to pirate it. They want to pay you. I want to give you my money. You know, it's the whole Futurama meme of shut up and take my money. They want people to take their money. They don't want to pirate it. And you are giving people around the world no options to legally, properly purchase your content. You're not giving them any options. So I don't condone it, but I don't judge it either because it's a very unique situation. Using a VPN, technically speaking, to access something in another country is technically not what you're supposed to do. But again, I pass no judgment because this is a unique situation and at least you're trying to find a way to make sure the creators and the owners of the property get the money for content that you're going to watch and enjoy. So I think you found an interesting way to do it. Again, we'll touch it a little bit more in your own standalone video. See, thank you for supporting the channel, man, and we'll get around to that a little bit deeper, a little bit later. All right, Kenneth Colton writes, going on my 3rd year as a Patreon member. Thank you so much, man. We appreciate that, dude. I also am supporting Christian and Rob with the recent news. Added Mark Riley and Roxy to it. It felt right, and that's great. And you know, when you guys can support creators, that's always a good thing because people like Roxy and Mark Riley were let go from their gigs, and which is really unfortunate. But listen, I just always think it's great that there are a lot of people, and this show exists because of it, that don't just watch content they enjoy. They actually want to support the content they enjoy. And I think that is awesome. So thank you so much, Kenneth, for being a Patreon supporter. And thank you so much for supporting other creators as well. I think that's awesome. So good on you, man. Thanks for that. All right. Sharan writes, anime recommendation. Here we go. Vineland Saga on Amazon Prime. It's a great story in the Viking era. I think somebody else brought this up the other day. In the Viking era that has amazing character development, political plots, discussions of philosophies, and highlights the brutalities of war through our main character on a path of revenge. This is, okay, first of all, I don't know for sure, Sharan, if this was you that sent this in the other day, but if it wasn't you, that is damn coincidental because I believe somebody else just the other day recommended the exact same thing. So it might have been you. It might have been somebody else. Because I said at the time, man, hey, if it's a Viking thing, I might be on board with that. I might have to check that out. So it's on Amazon Prime. Good to know because I'm a Prime member. So I can find it. So thank you for sharing that. I appreciate it. And again, you might have just be repeating your recommendation, but maybe you're the second person to recommend it, which would be kind of funny if that's true. All right. Let's see. 50 Shades of Geek writes, finally finished my most anticipated of 2020 video. And I got to say, I'm at all as excited for anything in 2020 as I was for 2019. Movies, TV shows, games, etc. Do you feel the same, or is this just me? I think that's fair. Look, 2020 could end up being a better year for movies than 2019 was. But going into 2019, there was a lot of big highlight things that we were very excited about. I don't feel there's as much in 2020 right now. Now, it all depends, right? Raya and the Last Dragon might be the greatest animated film we've ever seen. Venom 2 could be the greatest comic book movie of all time. Tenet could end up being Christopher Nolan's greatest personal film he's ever made. The new James Bond may end up being the best James Bond of all time. I mean, so like 2020 could end up being the best movie year of all time. But I got to agree with you. Standing on the outside looking forward, I'm not quite as psyched for 2020 as I was for 2019. But that's just how we're feeling about it right now. There's a lot of upside to this year, a lot of movies with a lot of potential. So let's see how it goes. But I see you're coming from on that, 50 Shades, I do. Okay, Sammy, where was I? Okay, Sammy Alwar writes, John, you are my hero. Thanks so much, man. I appreciate that. So did you watch the trailer for I Saw the Devil? Min Sik Choi's performance in it is Oscar-worthy. You know what? I did not. I remember I opened up the trailer for that, and then I was just so busy and so far behind, I never got around to watch it. So no, I did not. I did not, Sammy. I apologize for that. I will have to check that out soon, though, because again, you've been speaking so highly about it, so I'll have to try to check that out at some point. But no, I have not watched it yet. I will try to get around to doing that. Do me a favor. You know what? Can you do me a favor, Sammy? Email me at john@thejohncampeashow.com. john@thejohncampeashow.com. Email me and put in the title, I Saw the Devil. And if you wouldn't mind, include a link in that email to the trailer so that, because I'll probably forget by the end of the show today, but then if it's in my email, I go, oh yeah, that, and then I can click on the link and give it a view. I would appreciate that. Thanks so much, man. All right, Sophie N writes, reclining theater seats in theaters are already obsolete. The future is now reclining Tempur-Pedic beds in theaters and a blanket to keep you warm. Now that's comfort. I'll tell you what, Sophie, I have been to movie theaters that give you a full reclining bed, a queen size, a twin, full reclining bed, like with pillows and blankets and the whole bit. That's the next stage. You know, personally, I like a nice, comfy recliner more than a bed idea. There's just something very cozy about a recliner. I like that. But don't laugh, Sophie. Those theaters that you're talking about do exist, and they're pretty fun. I mean, they're pretty neat to be in. Ian Schindler writes, sends in a $50 chat, so we will be answering that in its own standalone video. Keep your eyes open for that a little bit later. Ian, thank you for supporting the channel on that level, dude. Hey, John, I just realized that YouTube has existed for 15 years, so the platform is now completely mature. You know, like TV was in 1945. So where do you see this platform going in the coming decade? What kind of content could we be watching in 2030? All right, thanks a lot for sharing that, man. And this is a great question for a standalone video. That is a great question for a standalone video. I think the trend we've seen happening in YouTube for the last little while of the growing networkification, if you will, of YouTube channels, where channels are no longer just individual channels, they become networks in and of themselves. That's something that we were kind of a part of when I was doing things at AMC Theaters and then later at Collider and things like that. We're definitely going to see that increase. I think you're going to see a lot more stuff pop up. But how is YouTube itself going to stand up versus the rise of some competitors? Because we're often hearing a lot of creators have some dissatisfaction with YouTube and all that kind of stuff. Let's go into that. I'm not an expert on it, just to be clear. I'm not an expert, Ian, but let's go into that a little deeper when we address your own standalone video of that. So keep tuned for that. That's a great topic of discussion, and we'll bring that up in its own video. Thank you again for submitting it, and thank you for supporting the channel on that level, man. We really appreciate it around here. All right, next up. Darth Sidious writes, hey, John and crew. So now that we have confirmation on multiple cuts for Star Wars Episode 9, by the way, no, we don't have confirmation. An anonymous, unverified Reddit user dropping some random post without any verification or identification is not verifying anything. Just be clear about that. That's not verifying anything. Multicut for episode 9. Would you rather they release JJ's cut of the movie, considering it would have had Anakin and Obi-Wan? Again, there's nothing to confirm any of that. I'm not even gonna get into that, because you're talking about something as if it's fact when there is no basis for believing that it's fact. That's just the thing. So we could speculate about everything and anything. And by the way, the version of the movie we saw was JJ's version, but JJ probably had several different versions. But it's not like they did not take the movie away from JJ and had somebody else edit it and all that kind of stuff. It's the movie you saw was JJ's movie. It was one version of JJ's movie. Just like any other movie, there would have been other versions as well, but we can't have discussions of things as if they're based on fact when what you're talking about is basing things on an anonymous, random, maybe the 12-year-old kid who lives next door to you just made it up and plopped it on Reddit. You have no way of knowing. That sort of thing. So we got to pump the brakes on that a bit. All right. Sin Vendetta writes, with 1917 having its limited theatrical release in 2019 and its wide release in 2020, does it count as a 2019 movie or as a 2020 movie? It counts as a 2019 movie. When a movie debuts in theaters for the public to see, so that's not including film festivals, when a movie debuts in a year or it's available for a public audience in New York or Los Angeles to go and see the movie, that's the year it counts for. That's why, even though it doesn't go into wide release until 2020, it qualifies for this upcoming Oscars because technically it released in 2019. Great question, Sin Vendetta. I hope that cleared that up. An anonymous viewer writes, checked out Shaolin vs. Llama. Gotta eat more chicken. Shaolin vs. Llama. You can beat me with this stick for my insolence. Ah, you have chicken. That is one of the greatest my all-time favorite Kung Fu movie. My all-time favorite Kung Fu movie, Shaolin vs. Llama. I must die to prove that Buddha exists. If you haven't seen Shaolin vs. Llama, go watch it. So I'm glad you did, Anonymous. Tom Gillard writes, JJ cut, I want the Robert Meyer Burnett cut. I think the Robert Meyer Burnett cut of just about any movie would make a movie better. Ethan Hunt writes, I think it's obvious how Darth Senate, you probably meant Sidious, survived being thrown down the Death Star shaft. Right before he landed, he whipped out these... Don't laugh. I had somebody else say this to me, Ethan. He whipped out the Inquisitor helicopter saber and flew off to safety cannon. For those you don't remember, I believe it was in Rebels, that the Inquisitors could fly with their things. It was weird, but it is canon, so maybe that's exactly what Darth Sidious did. That's exactly what the Emperor did. When Vader threw him down the shaft, once he was out of eye length, he pulled out his little go-go gadget helicopter thing, and he flew off to safety. Ethan, I think you're absolutely onto something there, brother. All right, Ascended Ancient writes, my favorite films in no order: Endgame, Infinity War, Blade Runner 2049, The Greatest Showman. Oh, I love The Greatest Showman. Fury, Joker, Ford v Ferrari, Winter Soldier, Nice Guys, Rogue One, Grand Budapest Hotel, Avengers, the first one, The Martian, that's a great movie, Mission Impossible Fallout, Force Awakens, Inception, Alita, and Aladdin 1992. It's nice to see at least one movie in there that's not a completely modern movie. But I mean, clearly you're somebody who's into the genre kind of stuff with a lot of comic book movies, sci-fi, things like that. But look, the thing about movies is that they are designed to give us an experience that we enjoy. And as individuals who have different subjective tastes and opinions, all these different movies are going to strike us in different ways. And I got to say, I can't see a single movie on your list that I don't really enjoy. Blade Runner 2049, Infinity War, Winter Soldier, Nice Guys, so good. I love every movie you got. I don't love Alita Battle Angel. I don't love it, but I really did quite enjoy it. I thought it was better. It turned out better than I thought it would. I'm a fan of Alita Battle Angel. I wouldn't put on any kind of a favorite list at all. The script was way too messy, but that was just for me. But if it worked for you, dude, that's the important thing. And I like all the films on your list. Thanks for sharing that. All right, Ethan Hunt writes, hey, John, is there a certain trope or cliche pet peeve of yours that makes you throw your head back whenever you see it in TV or film? Well, that topic comes up a lot, Ethan, and I'll just give you the one that I often talk about is meet me at midnight at Death Peak. That trope is crazy and is overused in TV and movies and everything way too much. What is the Death Peak, meet me at Death Peak at midnight? Here's what it is. When the hero gets a phone call from somebody else in the story, and that somebody says to them, I've got this vitally important information. And the hero says, well, what is it? And inevitably the other person says, not on the phone, meet me at Death Peak at midnight. And then you know, as the audience, that dude on the phone is going to die before they're ever able to meet up with the hero at Death Peak at midnight to give them the information, right? And I've always wondered, like, why not on the phone? Why not? You're talking to them right now. Just tell them. Turns out the killer is Eddie. Just tell them that on the phone. Instead, oh, hero of the movie, I've unraveled the mystery of who the killer is. Really? Tell me, who is the killer? I can't. Not over the phone. Meet me at Death Peak at midnight. A different version of that has happened in so many different movies and TV shows. It is so overused. Even some of the great movies have used it. But that is one that always makes me roll my eyes and throw my head back. All right, Disney Milk Machine writes, Iger's favorite food is selfish. Ha ha ha. Hashtag release the Lucas cut. Amir writes, one of two. I started The Witcher and got to the end of episode 1, which I thought was brilliant, by the way, although some felt it was the weakest one. And I thought about how much I would be looking forward to next week to watch episode 2 if it was on HBO, etc. 2 of 2. I ended in a way that would have had me talking about it all week, and by week 5 we would have had friends around to watch the latest installment. Instead, I just clicked on next episode. The sense of anticipation is lost when a show is dropped all at once. Amir, I have come to completely believe that as well. Now, I've always said, we've talked about this before, I've always felt like from a business point of view, releasing episodes 1 week at a time was the smart thing to do. From a business point of view, I've always understood that. That is probably the smarter thing to do. But as a fan, I always kind of preferred when they drop an entire season at once. But I've changed my mind. Mandalorian and Witcher really highlight why I've changed my mind. Because as a fan, with Mandalorian, which is released week to week, we've got to talk about, celebrate, speculate over everything, analyze Mandalorian week after week, all together as fans for months at a time. And then when new episodes are dropped, me and friends would get together to watch the new episodes and blah, blah, blah. It was just a better experience. Witcher? No one's even talking about Witcher anymore. Witcher dropped all at once. Everybody watched it, and now they're done. It's not going to build from word of mouth. It's not going to get all types of buzz. It had a big drop all at once, and now it's done. And I didn't get to enjoy it as a fan with my fellow fans the way I've been able to enjoy it with Mandalorian. I'm not saying Mandalorian's the much better show. I'm just saying the experience of being able to go week to week and celebrate it and talk about it and share it for months at a time is a better fan experience for me than they just dropped all the episodes at once and that then you either watch it or you don't, and then you talk about it a couple of times with some friends and then it's done. Witcher's already old news. I loved it, by the way, but it's already old news. The Mandalorian fan experience, to me, was a much better fan experience as a fan than the strategy of how they release Witcher. Anyway, that's just my opinion on that, but Amir, I'm 100% on the same page. Other people disagree, and that's cool, but I'm 100% on the same page with you. All right, Snake writes, not looking for your reaction regarding the quote-unquote exciting news All I ask is, are you considering expanding the rotating panel with a few familiar faces since there is no longer any risk of having the audience think you're associated with that place? All right. I will say this. Because you're not asking me to talk about anybody on a personal level. You're asking me about show structure and philosophy. The answer to your question about, and yeah, I got to admit, announcing that you're canceling shows that people have watched for years and letting a bunch of people go from their jobs and then leading off your news announcement with exciting news, we're canceling all these shows and letting all these people go. I didn't think that was the right approach, but whatever. It's who cares what I think? Whatever. Doesn't matter. One of the things that I gave my advice to Collider about, again, we're just talking about professional philosophy, about how you structure things, strategy. We're just talking about a strategy thing here. One piece of advice and strategy that I gave Collider months after I had left, and their numbers had started to decline. One of the things that I suggested them, and maybe I was right, maybe I was wrong, okay? Maybe I was right, maybe I was wrong. We'll never know. But one of the pieces of advice I gave them was, you are having rotating panels every single day. Part of the strength of Movie Talk and why it, for 5 straight years, constantly grew for 5 straight years. Except for when I stepped away for a little bit, but that's fine. Once we got back to our strategy and our philosophy, it started growing again. 5+ straight years of growth is because of this. We always had the same group of people. Now, sometimes somebody might sit in that chair instead of that person. And on Fridays, like we had the exact same panel Monday through Friday. And then on Fridays for a while, Dennis would lead the show. Dennis did such a great job leading the show with a different panel on Fridays. But for the most part, people watched Movie Talk because they knew the personalities. They knew the people. And they knew what they were going to get every day that they tuned in. They were going to get Mark Ellis, Christian Harloff, John Schnepp, John Campea, and for a while there, Jeremy Johns. Sometimes just different seats, sometimes. But for the most part, people knew what they were going to get every day when they would click on a Movie Talk video to come and watch Movie Talk. They knew the personalities, they knew who they were going to get, and they knew who they were going to come and spend time with. And after I had left, they started this merry-go-round of like every day was a different assortment of people. One same person in the host chair, but then it was a rotating thing around them. And I remember I suggested to them, I said, look, I really think you need to stop that. I think you need to get your core players, and that is your group, because the audience, when they don't know, because remember, to me, Movie Talk was personality driven. The John Campea Show is personality driven. And because it's personality driven, a lot of the people who watch are watching to come and hang out and spend time with these personalities. And they know what they're getting. When you program it in such a way that you never know who's going to be there from day to day, a lot of people are going to start to fall off. And so one of the things I had suggested, and again, my philosophy may be totally wrong. Let's be clear about that. My philosophy could be totally wrong. It's just how I saw it. That's all. It was just my point of view, just my opinion. That's it. But one of the things at that dinner that I recommended was, I really think you just need to settle. Here are the 3 or 4 people that do Movie Talk, period. And every once in a while when you need to, maybe you have a guest. But I think the key to growth and the key is making people become comfortable with who's there so that you can build from there. And they didn't do that. Now, that all comes back now to what you're asking about now. Will I expand my rotating panel? No. Because that's my philosophy. My philosophy is, look, when you guys tune in, you guys know there are 3 people who do the John Campea Show, aside from John Campea. One, it's going to, for 90% of the time, you're going to see me and Robert Meyer Burnett. And then because Robert needs a break and we like to throw in a little something different here and there, I'm super blessed to have Chris Carr and Aaron Cummings. So they come in and pepper once in a while. And that's it. Because I believe my philosophy, which could be wrong, but it is the one I've adopted. I believe that having a core, regular group of people is essential to ongoing success. Doesn't mean we never have a guest now and again, but for the most part, when you tune into the John Campea Show, 90% of the time you know you're going to get me and Rob. Every once in a while, you're going to get a little peppering of Chris and Aaron, and that's it. Because I believe that kind of consistency is important. And I might not be right, but it is the philosophy I have, and it is a philosophy that has worked for me through 5+ years at AMC, all the way through to now what I do here with the John Campea Show. It is a philosophy that has worked for me. I believe consistency is an important thing. So no, I have no plans of expanding a rotating panel of people in the John Campea Show, not because a lot of those people aren't wonderful, fantastic, wonderfully gifted people. Absolutely. But that's not my philosophy. My philosophy is getting a core group of really good people and then making sure the audience knows every day when they tune in, what are they going to get when they tune in? And it is just my opinion that could be wrong, but I really believe that is one of the big issues why you saw over the last 2 years their numbers decline so badly. Not because they didn't have super talented people, because they did have super talented people. Not because they weren't talking about the right subjects. They talked about all the exact same subjects that I talk about on the John Campea Show. I believe it's because they missed a fundamental thing, which was the audience never knew what they were going to get on Movie Talk after I left. They never knew what they were going to get. Were they going to get this person, this person, this person? There's one of 20 different people. Quite frankly, they had some people that probably shouldn't have been on it. That would have been better if their skills were used in a different type of program or different type of event. And so no. I've gone on about this a long time. Sorry about that. So no, regarding that exciting meeting, I am not considering expanding the rotating panel because I don't believe that's good for the show. I don't believe making the audience guess who's going to be on the show from day to day is a good philosophy. I don't believe that works. I could be wrong. Maybe it would work great. I could be wrong. I'm not pretending like I know everything. I don't. But that is the philosophy I have, and it's the philosophy I'm sticking with. So anyway, that's the elongated answer to that, Snake. I appreciate you asking, and I hope I was able to answer that and address it in a correct way. All right, let's move on. Hey, listen, guys, listen. We only have about 10, 15 minutes left here, and yet we still have a ton of questions to get through, so I'm going to start going through these fairly quickly. So buckle in and hang on tight here. Adrian Rosales writes, top 5 good Canadian kids list. And by the way, thank you for supporting the channel on that level, Adrian. Wolverine, true. Keanu Reeves, Ryan Reynolds, Deborah Chow, and of course, Deborah Chow, who's just directed a few episodes of Mandalorian and will be directing the Obi-Wan series. And of course, the one, the only John Campea. Thank you for being the best damn movie-related show on the planet Earth. It's an awesome honor and privilege to listen to you. Oh, thank you so much for that, Adrian. And listen, even in light of, I'm not going to lie to you, I'm really bummed out. I'm bummed out by the happenings over at the other place. I'm bummed out by it. But it is awesome to have such a great core group of viewers and this community that come together and we get to talk about movies every day. And thank you so much for your support on that level. And I appreciate it. And thank you so much for the kind words, Adrian. I really appreciate it. And it's nice to be listed in the same breath as Keanu Reeves, Ryan Reynolds, and Deborah Chow. So thank you so much for that. We're all essentially the same, right? Me, Ryan Reynolds, and Keanu Reeves. We're all the same, right? All interchangeable. Sure. Aiden Foley writes, there have been a lot of great action movies in 2010s. Absolutely. Such as John Wick, Kingsman, Atomic Blonde. Atomic Blonde's underrated, by the way, etc. But without a shadow of a doubt, the best action movie to come out in the last decade has to be Threat Level Midnight. By the way, was that in 2010 or was it before that? Did Threat Level Midnight come out in the 2010s or earlier? That's a good question. Of course, with Agent Michael Scorn, Threat Level Midnight. I love it. Thanks for bringing that. And guys, for those of you who don't know, that's a reference to The Office, which is, if you've never seen Threat Level Midnight, I'm got to believe it's on YouTube somewhere. You should go check it out. All right. MDog84 writes, Signed up for Disney Plus Saturday to watch Mandalorian. Loved it, and after the last episode, needed more lore. Now I'm in season 5 of Clone Wars and looking forward to Rebels. Just curious, why do you dislike Ahsoka? She is my favorite. I'm not going to go into the whole thing again because I don't want to bash on a character. I'm just not a fan of the character. Now, a part of it, admittedly, is because I got off to such a bad start with that character, because that character was first introduced in the Clone Wars animated movie. Hey, Sky Guy! I hated that character. Oh my God, I hated the Ahsoka Tano character in that movie. Now, granted, part of my dislike of the character, and I don't like hate the character with a deep and abiding hatred. It's just I don't like the character. That's all. And admittedly, part of that is because it was such a bad introduction. You never get a second chance to make a good first impression. And then I was just never really into the character after that. I thought they did some interesting things with the Ahsoka Tano character in Rebels. Hope I didn't just spoil something for you. I thought they did some interesting things, actually, admittedly, with her in Rebels. But overall, yeah, just not a fan of the character myself. But a lot of other people love the Ahsoka Tano character, and that's awesome. All right, Dylan Axtell writes, over under 20% that Ezra will appear in The Mandalorian. I'm going to go well under 20%. I don't think that's where they're going to go. Calvin Blackdeer writes, sends in a really large super chat. Thank you for supporting the channel on that level, Calvin. My top 10 comic book movies of the 2010s. Number 1, Avengers Endgame. Number 2, The Avengers. Number 3, Avengers Infinity War. Number 4, Joker. Number 5, Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. Number 6, The Dark Knight Rises. Number 7, Logan. Number 8, Batman vs. Superman, Dawn of Justice. Number 9, Man of Steel. Number 10, Captain America, the First Avenger. Well, listen, these are all great movies. Batman vs. Superman may not be great, but I like Batman vs. Superman. I'm unapologetic about that. Avengers Endgame, to me, I like it very, very much. Everybody knows I do. I rated it very highly. I went to see it multiple times. I enjoyed it very much. I don't think overall it's as good as some people think it is, though. That's just me. That's just my personal opinion. For instance, it's not going to be in my top 10 of the year list. And I would put movies like The Dark Knight over it. I'd put Logan well over it. I put Spider-Man. I think Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse is a better movie than Endgame. I think obviously the first Avengers, I think, is the greatest comic book movie of all time. It's the quintessential comic book movie to me. But hey, the important thing is, as a subjective movie fan, that's how it strikes me. The important thing is, how does it strike you? And that's the order in which you enjoy them. That's great. And I gotta say, I enjoyed every single movie on your list, man. I enjoyed every single movie on your list. So that's awesome. Thanks for sharing that, Calvin. All right. Shane Roxas writes, hey, John, finally got around to watching The Lighthouse, and pardon my French, but what the F did I just witness? A complete lost words. Dude, Shane, that is exactly what I said when I walked out. After the movie was done, totally enjoyed the performances. It was a really cool cinematic experience. But I said the exact same thing when I walked out, dude. I'm like, what the F did I just watch? Like, what was that? I'm not sure. I was and I'm still to this day, months later, a little bit confounded. Still months later, just a little bit confounded. So I'm totally with you on that. But how good are the performances in it? Oh my God, the performances in that are so good. Corey O writes, John, I'm someone who grew up loving the Star Wars movies, but haven't dove into the extended universe much outside of a couple of books. Is it worth checking out the animated shows and some of the novels, comic books? And if so, any recommendations or must reads? Well, remember, the animated shows are considered canon. Other than like the old animated shows like the Ewoks and Droids. Remember those shows, guys? Those aren't canon. The shows like Clone Wars, Rebels, they are canon. I'm not a big fan of Clone Wars, but I gotta recommend that you do watch them because so many people do like those shows. So it doesn't matter that I'm not a big fan of it. Doesn't matter. The fact of the matter is a lot of people do like those shows, and so I would recommend that you check them out and see if you enjoy them. I did quite enjoy Rebels, though. Rebels I really did quite like. As far as the novels, yeah, there are a couple of really good ones that are canon. Things like Lords of the Sith, Tarkin, Lost Stars. These are all novels that are Star Wars canon that you can check out. As far as the non-canon Star Wars books, the ones I always go to is the Grand Admiral Thrawn trilogy that includes Last Command and things like that. That is a series of books from 20 years ago. I can't remember how long ago those novels came out, but they are not canon. but it's excellent reading, and I would recommend that stuff, Corey. Hopefully you find that helpful. All right. Masej from Poland writes, thank you for writing from Poland. All new Star Wars is a mess, and it's Kathleen Kennedy's fault. How I have no idea what we're talking about, can let this happen. She kept their firstborns in a basement. Disney had a chance to write new 3 and outline different projects. Kevin Feige did for Marvel, and he plans story arc for 20 movies. KK can't do it for 3. Well, listen, from a business point of view, Disney loves Kathleen Kennedy. She has now overseen the production of 5 Star Wars movies, 5 live action Star Wars movies, and 1 Star Wars live action TV series that she's in charge of. The 5 movies have averaged over $1 billion a film. Over $1 billion per film, even when you take Solo into consideration. On a per film basis, no one's going to like to hear this, but it's true. On a per film basis, Kathleen Kennedy's movies make more money than Kevin Feige's movies do. I mean, again, I'm not giving you an opinion. I'm just telling you what the mathematical fact is. Now, whether that's deserved or not deserved, that's a totally different discussion. But on a per film basis, when you look at the 5 films that Kathleen Kennedy has overseen, plus the television series, compared to the MCU that Kevin Feige's overseen, the per film box office average is actually higher for the 5 Star Wars movies. What does that mean? Who knows? I'll leave that up to you to decide if that's important or not. And she also oversaw a really successful television series in Mandalorian. She's overseeing the bringing back of Clone Wars. She's overseeing bringing back Obi-Wan, which has everybody excited. So from Disney's point of view, they're very happy with Kathleen Kennedy. She's made them tons of money. And she's launched their television stuff with Mandalorian. So there's that. My biggest criticism of Kathleen Kennedy, number 1, is her inability to properly handle directors. I've talked about that ad nauseum. But the second biggest problem that I've had with Kathleen Kennedy's reign at Lucasfilm has been exactly what you're saying. She approached Star Wars as a producer instead of as a studio head. Because as a producer, Kathleen Kennedy is one of the greatest of all time. It's just not even debatable. Kathleen Kennedy is one of the greatest producers Hollywood has ever seen. But as a producer, her philosophy is to empower and enable and facilitate directors and filmmakers to bring their visions to life. That's her philosophy as a producer, and that's one of the things that makes her one of the best of all time. However, as a studio head, she should not have that mentality. She should have had the mentality of needing to lay out a story for the 3 films before getting the directors on board, or at least before they started shooting their films. Instead, she just let each director do whatever they wanted to do, which created a disjointed and jarring trilogy that totally changed feel from film 1 to film 2 and from film 2 to film 3. Now, I still like the first 2 films, but even I, somebody who liked the first 2 films, even I have to tell you that, yeah, they were complete. It was jarring, the difference of tone going from one to the next. And I concur that that is one of the biggest problems of Kathleen running Lucasfilm. At least one of the biggest mistakes that she made, because she approached them as a producer, and that was totally the wrong thing to do. She should have approached it as a studio head, which is what she was. And I think that's the big problem. The 2 big problems, her inability to properly handle directors, and number 2, that she didn't approach this with a plan. They didn't approach it with a plan. And that to me is one of the big problems. All right. Only got a few minutes left here, guys. I'm going to go through a bunch of these really quickly here. Madhu Vatten writes, started watching Parks and Rec and I am hooked. Love it so much. Currently in the middle of season 2. Oh, I love that show. One of the greatest sitcoms of all time. And I'll tell you what, the first 2 seasons are the worst seasons. Yep. And they're great. And they're the worst seasons. That's how good this show gets, especially once you get into season 3 and season 4. Oh my God, Parks and Rec is so great. I hope you have a good time watching it, my friend. Samuel Shin writes, unpopular opinion, but I love JJ's Kelvin timeline. I quite enjoy all 3, even Into Darkness, and prefer it over the Prime timeline. Happy New Year. Well, I'm not sure if I prefer it over the Prime one, but I got to tell you, Samuel, I like JJ's Star Trek films. Even Into Darkness. I've got some issues with Into Darkness. But I really overall quite enjoyed JJ Star Trek films, even though he didn't direct the final one. I like those 3 films. I particularly like the final one. Actually, the final one was great. The one that Simon Pegg wrote, I thought that was fabulous. I really had a good time with it. So I'm with you. I'm not sure I'd say I prefer it over the Prime timeline stuff. I'm not sure. But I really do enjoy these films. So you and me, brother. You and me on the same page. Eric DeRigi writes, DeRigi Clan of 2 checking in. This is the way. Awesome. I hope you sent me a picture of that shirt. I haven't checked on the email yet, but hopefully you sent me a picture of those shirts, Eric, because I want to see those. Gualame Labelle writes, greetings from Montreal. I love Montreal. Me and a couple of friends are going to a Lord of the Rings extended edition trilogy marathon at Cineplex. Okay, that sounds pretty fun. I feel like I'm going to need some deodorant and a long night of sleep afterwards, but it's going to be a hell worth it. Love your show. Thank you so much. And dude, I would love to take a Saturday and do a full Lord of the Rings in theater experience. I would suggest that deodorant should really be heavily applied before going to the theater. Hell, you might even want to bring a bag with some extra deodorant in there just in case. But that sounds like a hell of a good time. I'm not a big fan of Cineplex these days, but kudos to Cineplex for hosting that, because that sounds like an amazing event. I would totally take a day out to go and watch the full Lord of the Rings trilogy on the big screen again in one sitting. I would totally be there for that. Have a good time, man. I'm glad you shared that. All right. Lazarus Paris writes, how do you feel about a Disney Plus show like Clone Wars for the other eras of Star Wars? I think it would definitely expand the universe. Love all the eras. I mean, it's like anything else, Lazarus. Concept doesn't make a good show. I used to believe it did, and there are a lot of people who still believe that it does. But I've really come to believe that concept doesn't make a good show. Concept's a great starting point. It's all about how well is it written, is it developed? Because again, I bring this up as the example all the time. It's a good example. Lego Movie is a stupid idea. A movie about plastic building blocks. That's idiotic. It's a stupid concept. But I love that movie. I love that movie because it's all about execution. So yeah, you could do it, and I wouldn't be opposed to it, but I don't think that really ensures anything about whether it would be good or not. I look, maybe it's just I'm a certain way. I prefer live action stuff. I really enjoyed Rebels. Don't get me wrong. I would prefer them keeping their attention on live action stuff. That's where my heart really is, but it could work. It could work, Lazarus. Never know. Wave Wonder writes, Collider dies, Wonder Woman, or World War III starts, my girlfriend wants a break, WTF. It's a strange day when, I'm sorry to hear about you and your girlfriend, Wave Wonder. I'm sorry to hear about that. Hey, listen, a lot of good things to enjoy, though. Go on out and enjoy them, my friend. Daniel Hinosha writes, cheapest way to fly to Vancouver from Southern California? Probably WestJet from LAX. Yeah, WestJet from the Los Angeles airport to Vancouver would be a direct flight. I'm guessing that's probably the easiest. Air Canada could also do it. Best way, but I'm not a travel expert, so I don't know. Google it, I suppose, Daniel. All right, Jumongo sends in the last couple of questions here, guys. The Jumongo writes in, halfway into my second view of Witcher season 1, have to say spoiler. Then I gotta skip it, dude. For those of you listening on the podcast, if it's a saying spoiler doesn't help me here, so I have to skip the question. Sorry about that. Groovy Don't Play writes, thanks so much for the past 5 years of honest, smart, and movie conversations. When Underwater flops, will that be the end of Hollywood's obsession with Kristen Stewart? First of all, I don't know if it's going to flop. I mean, I don't know how expensive or cheap it was to make that movie. And by the way, it won't, because they don't blame her for whether a movie does well or not. Kristen Stewart, sorry, all the actors know she's a really good actress. She just is. You may not like the movies she's in and all that kind of stuff, but all the big Hollywood talent and other actors, they look at Kristen Stewart and they see her as a really, really good actress. And by the way, what are you talking about Hollywood's obsession with Kristen Stewart? You're acting like she's in 10 movies a year. I just don't see that. Then you're right. I like her, but audiences can't get over Twilight. Oh, they can. You put her in the right movie, they can. Yeah, they absolutely can. If you get her in the right movie, in the right role. Now, look, Charlie's Angels wasn't the right movie, the right role, clearly. Will Underwater be? I don't know. For all I know, this movie's fantastic. I got my invitation to a press screening of it. I don't go to many press screenings anymore, so I'm probably not going to go to that one either. But it's going to be interesting to see what people think about it. But yeah, by saying the end of Hollywood's obsession with Kristen Stewart, you're acting as if like she's been put in 25 movies a year. And really, she hasn't been. She's done a lot of small indie stuff, and she's really turned into a pretty good actress. So I don't see the basis for saying the Hollywood obsession with her. I just don't see where you're getting that from. Anyway, that's just my kind of observation on that, Groovy. Last question of the day comes to us from Jumengo, who writes in, did you watch The Two Popes on Netflix? I did finally get around to watching that. I might be partial because of the director Fernando Meirelles. City of God is from my country, but what a wonderful movie. I can't remember the last time 2 hours conversation made a 2 hour movie conversation movie flew by like that. And being somebody who was raised Catholic, there was also additional thing, and I remember the drama of all that very, very well. Now, I don't know right now. I haven't read into it. I don't know how much of that was historically accurate or not. Like, I just don't know. It might have been 50% accurate, 50% fiction. Maybe it was 90% accurate, 10% fiction. I simply don't know on that level. So simply as a movie-going experience, can't really say movie-going, but movie-watching experience. As far as a movie-watching experience go, it was quite good. And I think you're going to see a couple of Academy Award nominations for this film as well. So they did, I thought, a very, very good job. Again, I'm not commenting on the accuracy of the thing. You know me. I don't think the accuracy of the movie is all that important when making a narrative entertainment movie. It is when you're doing a documentary, but not when you're making a narrative entertainment movie. The goal of the filmmaker is to make the best movie possible. And I thought they made a pretty damn good film, in my opinion. Anyway, guys, that will do it for today's installment of the John Campea Show. Thank you so much for being here and being a part of the show, guys. And listen, thanks to Robert Meyer Burnett, who is here. Thanks to Christian Harloff for contributing in here as well. And thank you to all you guys for being here and making today's show a part of your day. And a special thank you to all of you guys who sent in all the questions. Number one, because you gave us great fun things to talk about. But number two, because you supported the channel while we were doing it. So I thank you very deeply for that, guys. And all of us here, from me, fact checker Jonathan, Ray, Rob, Aaron, Chris, everybody here, thank you for that support, guys. That will do it for me. Keep your guys' eyes open again for those standalone question videos for the $50 questions. Those are going to be coming up. We are going to have an open mic tomorrow on the John Campea channel, so keep your eyes open for that. And then, of course, the John Campea Show returns again on Monday morning. Make sure you guys book that in and make sure you're here to join us for that as well. While you're here, why not take a second, if you haven't done so already, click the subscribe button. Become a subscriber to our YouTube channel. Over 200,000 people have. Why don't you join them and come and party? What's the first rule? Party. Name that movie. Anyway, guys, that'll do it for us for now. My name is John Campea, and until next time, my friends, stay filthy.